Welcome to the pre-show, everyone. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward about 15 minutes and we'll be getting started. In the meantime, you can watch me do whatever it is that I do here for 15 minutes. Let's turn on the bar. Let's not do the countdown. It's happening right now. Click here. That's the right place. Reset my cookie. Save my changes. And that's working. What else do I need to do? Let's go to our list, shall we? List. You can tell I have a vocal zone. Let's see. Where's my checklist? Got a lot of blank notes in here. All right. If you searched for checklist, there it is. All right. Got the stream information because you're watching this. Website banners updated. Yep. You should be getting the automatic stuff shortly. All right. Then we're just fine then. Socrative is running. Chat room is on the screen. Let's check cameras, shall we? Check this camera. There's a thing in the way. What's in the way here? That's not good. That's not good. Let's move this over. Look at that. Much better. Now you can see whatever it is I got going on back there. All right. And that's why you check the cameras. This camera, it's really, I tried to put all my junk away. Although I've got my vocal thing sitting out here. Looks like I have some type of dispensary. This is actually Slippery Elm. Slippery Elm. It's all my voice stuff. Slippery Elm, we've got Entertainer's Secret, which keeps your throat lubricated, and Singer's Saving Grace, which is a soothing throat spray. This is the Serious Cinnamon. And it tastes awful, but it's so good when you're on that 5th video. All right. We aren't through the cameras yet. Camera 3. And let me bring up the camera. Oh, iPad. Poor iPad. It's had better days. Let's get this set up here. I should see that there. That's nice. How about the talking head? There we go. Hi. Hi there. Hi. Hi, hi. Get rid of me. Where'd I go? Here I am. Okay. And that all works. Let's do an audio check. Check 22334455. I need to play this live and see how this turns out. Let's play it live and listen to some audio. How are we doing there? Let's do an audio check. Okay, audio works. And how convenient that my iPad is resetting itself. I thought it might need to do that. All right. What else? What else are we up to? Oh, how are we on Socrative? Socrative's up and running. Here it is. There we go. People are in there. All right. And this is all good. Need to put chat right there. Okay, I think I could do this. I think there's a thing we can do. I have questions and stuff. It's a little chilly at headquarters here. What is the temperature? It is 43 degrees Fahrenheit. 43. That seems a little cool, doesn't it? High today of 50. I don't think it's going to get up to 50. Okay, we are about 10 minutes away from going live. So now's the time to grab some coffee, grab a pencil, grab a piece of paper. I don't know what you do with those. That's just what people say. There would be no good reason to have a pencil or piece of paper on this. Ba, 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 ba. Okay. Is this working? It is. It's all alive. Okay. All right. I need to do some dusting in here. It's getting a little dusty. It's one of those things you don't notice till you turn the lights on. Usually it's all dark in here. I'm sitting in a cave, and I like that. But sometimes it's a little dusty. All right, iPad, let's see if you're going to be a thing. All right, let's do a keynote. Which is right there. Keynote. And I'm going to need another slippery elm before we start. All right. Do we have a green light? We do. And we're good. All right. Okay, I got a lot of things to do today. We got the study group now, and then I've got a bunch of videos I need to editing them today, and then I think tomorrow and Friday is shooting days. That will give me something to do. I guess next on my list, let's see what's next on my list for those of you keeping track on the A+ side. I'll be shooting A+ videos. And next on the list is, I'm in the security section. So we'll be doing, did I do securing Windows yet? We're at about section 3.3. We're almost done with this. Yeah, Windows security settings will be next. There's only 5 more videos left in security. Probably do those in the next sitting. And it's off to troubleshooting, 5, 6, 7 of those. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the operational procedures. So we're nearly done shooting and sitting and shooting, shooting and sitting. That video, which would be pretty good. How is this? Is this in the right place? Really? Is it? Let's see. I think it is. I think that's a pretty good place. We'll go with that. Let's see, something directed to me on the Twitter, and it's not. It's a follow, even though I've told the Twitter app not to tell me when people follow. It still puts a notification up because Twitter is having some desperate problems on their development side. Makes me wonder for the future of this company. Not this company, that company, Twitter, as a company. That's what happens. You go public. You have all of this really awesome technology. People love it. It is taken the world by storm, and then you go public and you lose sight of what's important. So that's one of those kinds of things. Oh, it's my first study group too. So there you go. This is great. Is it time yet? No, we still got 7 minutes. 6 minutes. It's all going down. 6 minutes. Well, it's kind of boring when everything works. You just turn it on, it all works properly. That's because I'm in here every day shooting videos. So everything's just sort of set up and ready to go. This is exactly the same configuration I use for shooting the course videos, except I don't have a laptop here usually. Laptop's here just for the live events. Usually it's just these 2 monitors and the video switcher, which I can also see up there. And the recording. I'm not recording. Might as well start a recording, right? Right. Okay. Now we're recording there. Now we're recording here. Recording on separate recorders down here. That's a little circle of red light going there. And then I have a video switcher that you're seeing all of this on, and it is also recording everything. Okay, what else do we have to do? I think that's it. Okay, so there's the tweet. The Facebook stuff should have gone out as well. Let's see if it did. I don't see it. Facebook's kind of a weird thing, though. Facebook has its own little, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't kind of thing. And I can't imagine what it is about this. Why it just sometimes posts and sometimes doesn't. That's the way it works. I have to talk to my Facebook people. Say, what's up with that? Ooh-wee. Da-da-da-da. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Mm-hmm. Well, the after show is open phone lines anyway. You can ask whatever you'd like. But you're right. I think people will ask all kinds of interesting things. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Mm-hmm. All right, we are a few minutes from starting. I'm almost going to need to put air conditioning on. That may be happening here shortly. We will see. All right, people in the chat room, we are about to get going. We are 3 minutes away from the start time. And we'll see what's going on. Where's, all right, it's all off right now. So we'll have to turn that on later. Ba, ba, ba. Da, da, da. Okay. Well, here we go. I'm going to collect these things here. See if I can. That piece is there. All right. Make sure there's nothing there. I think everything looks okay. I'm looking at myself in the preview. That looks pretty good. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Just put up a graphic. Need to get the graphic correct. Did I grab the graphic? I don't even know if I grabbed the graphic. Let's grab a graphic. Let's go to this. Let's grab it. And let's load it up with the plus sign here and a session grab. And it was at the top. It's that one. There. Now we have a graphic just like that. Ken, we got a minute and a half still ready to go. Let's quit out of this. Let's test the graphic. See, now we get a graphic. Isn't that awesome? All right. I think we're about ready. I think we could do this. 1 minute. We'll give you 1 minute. 1 minute. You know, it should be a good study group. I got some good questions, I think. Some of these were left over. Last month, I didn't get through as many as I wanted, so got some of these left over. Well, that's not... What are we covering today? Indeed. What are we covering today? I would say this would be Network Plus. All right, everybody. About 10 seconds to go. I think we should get this thing started. We're recording. We're live. You see this. Chat room is here. And it's time. Let's do this. Let's see if we can get a graphic going. Those look good. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the February 2016 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group. This is the monthly study group where I ask you Network Plus questions, and then you online interactively using the magic of the internet are able to answer in real time, and I get to see your responses. So we all will work together and see how well you're really prepared for your Network Plus certification. We've got a number of different topics to go through today. I do want to remind you, of course, that we do this every month. If you wanted to learn more about my Network Plus course, you can always go to the ProfessorMesser.com website, specifically ProfessorMesser.com/GetNetPlus. Will show you a lot of details. I'll tell you about that in a moment. Of course, you can always follow what I'm doing on Twitter, ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter, on YouTube. Just type ProfessorMesser.com/something, and you will find me on Facebook, on Google+, on Twitter, on Instagram, on whatever it happens to be. And don't forget that I have discount vouchers available. So don't pay full price for your voucher. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. For those of you that have watched all of my videos online, they are, of course, absolutely free for you to watch online. But I also have videos that you can, of course, download and have sitting there available wherever you happen to be. So if you have a slow internet connection, or you need an offline version, or you'd like the MP3 files, or you'd like course notes, I bundle all of these things together, or you can buy them individually. Maybe you just want the MP3 files to be able to do that. So that's one thing that you can do as well. It becomes very useful to have that there. There's a lot of things that we want to cover today, but to be able to answer these questions that I'm going to be asking, you will need to pop open a new browser window, or you will need to download the Socrative Student app. That way you can log into that student app, or just go to a separate window, go to Socrative.com and go to the Professor Messer room name. Make sure you spell it right, or you will be the only one in there. It's like walking into the wrong room at school. You need to be in the right room. So make sure you type it properly, ProfessorMesser. And when you go to that Socrative Student app, or you open up that window, you will see a question that says, how long have you been studying for your Network Plus certification? And you'll be able to answer it. You can see a number of these say, yeah, right here, I've been studying right now for my Network Plus certification. So right here is a really good place to be. So you can see exactly what the different options are. Is it less than 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months, 9 months to a year, over a year, or some of you already have your Network Plus certification, which is great. Sometime in this hour, I will give you a special code that you can send to me, and I'll send you a continuing education unit. So if you're someone who is accumulating CEUs, that'd be a really good way to do it, is to be able to sit through and work through those pieces. So make sure you go through and have a look, see if you can get on Socrative. Make sure you see this. I'll leave that question up. It'll sit there, and all you have to do is sit there on the screen. Now, if you're watching this in the replay, you obviously can't use Socrative Live. Sorry about that. You have to be here for the live event to be able to use Socrative. And if you're wondering when the next live event is, you can go to ProfessorMesser.com/calendar. So not bad. Not bad ideas to be able to do that. Let's talk about Network Plus. I actually got a question in my email this week that said, so when is Network Plus changing? Well, it's going to be some time now. This Network Plus came out last year. So there's usually about a 3-year cycle. So somewhere around February of 2018 will be the next update, if any, to Network Plus. So the current version, the N10006, is the latest version. It's the version that's going to be around for a number of years. If you're studying for Network Plus, make sure that all of your study materials say on them N10006. If they say anything else, those are the wrong study materials. Make sure you have all of the right study materials. We'll talk more about these exam objectives later on in the study group. Well, let's do questions, shall we? Now that you're in Socrative, I can see some of you have been looking through these questions. Let's go to our first question, which is, which of these would be a benefit of jumbo frames? So what would it be? What would be a benefit of jumbo frames? Well, I have a list of things that you can choose from, fortunately. So which of these would be a benefit of jumbo frames? Would it increase the maximum file size on Ethernet networks? Would it allow slower networks to transfer data as fast as higher speed networks? It increases the total amount of traffic on high-speed networks. It improves the efficiency of large data transfers, or it increases compatibility between networks by using the smallest possible MTU. One of these is going to be a benefit of using this jumbo frame. If you think you know the answer, don't answer in the chat room. Instead, go to Socrative.com and you will be able to answer this there. Make sure you know what that happens to be. And of course, no Googling. Don't Google. Pretend you're sitting there ready to take this exam, and you're going to have to take a guess to see which one it is. And I think you could look through that list. It's a pretty good list of different things, but really only one of those is going to be the benefit. And it should jump out at you. All of the others that are in that list have nothing to do with jumbo frames. So it should be very clear when you're looking at it as to exactly which one of these things it's going to be. So you might want to give that a shot. Now, some of you that are in Socrative, you're doing a pretty good job of getting into Socrative and going through this. My goal is that half of you know this. So whenever I'm writing these questions, I'm trying to get it so that there's a couple of steps. So you have to know what jumbo frames are, and then you have to know how to apply them. So there's your 2 steps. And then I like to make sure that I make at least the answers difficult enough that I'm getting about 50% coverage on this. So let's see how we did with this very first question about jumbo frames. I'm going to show how we did on this one. Well, it's like the majority of you, 67%, that's a little bit over the 50% I was shooting for, but still that's about the right number I was shooting for, says it improves the efficiency of large data transfers. But does it really? Could increase the maximum file size on Ethernet networks. 19% of you said that. 10% said increases the total amount of traffic on high-speed networks. And then you've got 8%, 6% single digits on the others. So let's talk about jumbo frames and why they're really useful to have this here. I think that's one of the things that I really like getting into the details of optimizing the network. And if you're working with gigabit networks, jumbo frames can be a very good way to improve the efficiency of file transfers. That's because on what we think of traditional jumbo frames, traditional Ethernet networks, you have 1,500 bytes is the amount of payload for these Ethernet frames. So if you have to send a very large file, you have to send many of those frames through to transfer that file. What if you could make the frames larger? That would be great to have a larger frame size. And if you could increase it, then you can have a fewer number of frames going through. It's much more efficient to do things this way. So you're going to have a larger packet size, but there's going to be fewer packets going back and forth, fewer packets to switch, fewer packets to route, fewer packets overall. So one of the challenges with this that you will find when you start getting into jumbo frames is that all of your equipment has to be able to support this. You can't plug in a workstation or a backup device, configure it to use jumbo frames, and all of your switches don't understand what those larger frame sizes are. These days, I think most devices on an enterprise and even at home are pretty aware of jumbo frames. I've had a problem with my ISP's router understanding jumbo frames. So I'm having to go back and forth with them to troubleshoot why that particular problem occurs. So one of the things that are very useful is to be able to go through the process of understanding jumbo frames, why you're seeing these jumbo frames on the network. Is everything synced up and can use these jumbo frames, and are they all set to the right size? That would be ideal to be able to do that. So if we look at our answers that we have here, those of you that did answer that it improves the efficiency of large data transfers, 59% of you got that one absolutely right. So let's look at these others just to see why these were not correct. A says that it increases the maximum file size on Ethernet networks. Well, it doesn't actually increase the file size at all. It makes it much more efficient to transfer a file, but the actual size of the file doesn't change at all going across the network. So we are not increasing file sizes on an Ethernet network. It allows slower networks to transfer data as fast as higher speed networks. Wouldn't that be nice? Doesn't work like that. Laws of physics still apply. So we're not going to be able to do that. Does it increase the total amount of traffic on high-speed networks? If anything, it decreases because you have fewer frames going across the network. Same amount of data, but fewer frames, which means less data, less overhead for those to be able to do it. That's one wherever I start working with those things, it becomes really useful to play around with How can I optimize the network? Jumbo frames, obviously, a way to optimize that. And increasing compatibility between networks by using the smallest possible MTU. No, we're using the largest possible. We're using the largest size of data transfer possible, thus the name jumbo frame. So those of you that answered D, 61%, you did a great job. Nice. Check that one off as being the correct answer for this. Let's do another Network Plus question, shall we? Let's go to this next question. All you have to do if you're already in Socrative is just sit there and the question will automatically change for those. The question is, which of these antennas would be the best choice for connecting the wireless network between two buildings? And again, I have some choices for you. Obviously, wireless networking is an important part of the Network Plus certification. The internals of wireless, understanding encryption, understanding all of the different settings. There's also this physical component because a wireless network is one that has no wires. You're using antennas and sending traffic back and forth over this network. So we can try this to understand which one of these antennas would be the best choice. The options are, we have a Yagi, we have omnidirectional, linear, dipole, and vertical. So I've given you a number of different options here to choose from to be able to determine, is this the right ones, the right antennas to use? And I'm giving you a very specific scenario. This is something that is asked of you on the Network Plus certification, is you have to know this type of scenario where you have maybe a network between two buildings. What's going to be my best choice for an antenna? Hopefully some of you have gotten the idea of that one, being able to work through those. I think that's a good one to do. If you think you know the answer, you can absolutely go to Socrative.com, go to Professor Messer. You'll absolutely be able to do that as well. I think there's a lot in this in the exam dealing with wireless. We often forget about the physical part of it, but there's an enormous, important physical part being able to use those. I think setting up, we almost become these wireless network technicians. I got an amateur radio license when I started doing more wireless networks because I wanted to understand the technology of really what was going on across the air. It might be something you might want to consider, is getting your amateur radio license in the United States anyway, because it's something that's relatively inexpensive. And it's interesting getting into understanding how these different communications take place over these wireless links. Well, you can see in this case, when we look at all of the different options here, we're all over the place. We have 37% said Yagi, 26% said omnidirectional, almost tied for second is linear, only 10% said dipole, and only 3% said vertical. So let's see how we did. I think we've got a number of different options on this one. Let's talk about these antennas and how they're used. We've got these directional antennas are extremely important when you're dealing with communication from one location to one location, especially two devices talking to each other. You want to be able to send that wireless signal over a very long distance, or certainly over a longer distance than you would normally see. If you can focus that signal, you're going to be able to go a longer distance. And that's the real key here, is to be able to directly focus on that piece of it. If you ever look at the way that antennas are categorized and the way that you would see them specified, you would see different decibel gains associated with the type of antenna. If you use this antenna, you have a 3 dB gain, which is doubling the amount of power. If you use this antenna, it's a 6 dB gain. If you use this antenna, it's a 12 dB gain. And so you want to use the antenna that's going to be appropriate for what you're trying to do. If you're going between two buildings, then you're going to want to use something very directional. You're sending a direct signal from one antenna to another, and the rest of the communication is inside of the building. So that's one that becomes pretty important. The Yagi is a good use of that. The parabolic antenna is another one where you can focus everything down from really a farther distance down to a single point. You usually use those off a very long distance. Satellite communication, for instance, very common to see a parabolic antenna with this one. So on the choices that we have and being able to work through this, you've got a number of things that we could examine here. We know that we could use Yagi or parabolic, which means the 34% of you that said Yagi absolutely correct. Yagi antenna is absolutely correct on that one. 28% omnidirectional would not be the most effective, not the best choice. And again, I'm asking you for the best choice. Omnidirectional wouldn't be the best choice because that's sending signal in all directions. We're trying to focus information to communicate between two buildings directly. Would not be a linear antenna, which is one I just kind of made up. There's not really a linear antenna. A dipole is one that's used very commonly on low frequency communication, especially shortwave type communication. And of course, vertical communications as well. Vertical antenna is one that just sticks straight up. Very common to see that as omnidirectional or somewhat omnidirectional for those. I like to use a lot of different kinds of wireless antennas depending on what I'm doing. If I've got an antenna that I'm using for shortwave communication, I've had them in my attic. It's been a dipole, which goes all the way across my attic on the inside. I've used vertical antennas, and for wireless communication, I've often used a Yagi or a parabolic, depending on what I'm doing. It becomes very useful to be able to do that. And so that becomes very useful to have that functionality there. If you're one of the folks who did answer the Yagi, 36%, you got that one absolutely correct. So for those of you that are watching online, those of you, or if you're ever wanting to join us when we have a live event, you can always go to professormesser.com/live and see what's going on. Folks in the chat room are wondering, are we live? Is this a replay? Well, yeah, I guess we're live right now. You would know if you go to my website to /live, you'll see a live event playing there with the live button there in the window. If you don't see that red live button, then obviously I'm not very live. I'm on the replay. So it's always fun to be here live, so you can always participate and answer questions like this one, which of these would be an example of a man-in-the-middle attack? What would an example be for man-in-the-middle attack? I have some options for you, of course, as usual. So make sure you go through and have a look at those. Let's have a look at them right now. We have, is it ARP poisoning? Would it be try all possible passwords starting with the letter A? Would it be command an entire botnet to connect to a web server simultaneously? Would it be send unexpected input to a web-based application, or craft a packet with an additional VLAN tag? One of these is going to be the best example of a man-in-the-middle attack. Although this is not a security test, it's something that is definitely not security related. It is one that does have a big security component on it. So make sure that you go through this list of different attack types so that you really understand what might be presented to you. Becomes really handy for those. This is one that you can always answer by going to scrative.com, go into the room Professor Messer, and you can answer these as well. I've got a number of different things I can do with this, and these are, I think every single one of these are valid types of attacks. They are. Each one of these is a type of attack. So you have to know which type of these is man in the middle to be able to do that. So if you are watching this live, someone in the chat room is asking if I have any prime time live study groups. Well, that's all relative, isn't it? Prime time depends on where you are in the world. We have people watching from all over the world. So whenever we do these study groups, they are always done on Wednesdays, and they are always at 12 noon Eastern time here in the United States. So that's usually when we will always perform and have these live study groups. We do live study groups for A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus, so at least 3 live events every month. And of course, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar, and we have all the dates and times available for you to see right there. So let's see how we did with this one, the man-in-the-middle attacks. How do we do? Well, let's see. I didn't quite hit a 50% on any of these, but if we had to pick a winner, we could choose ARP poisoning, 44%. Set ARP poisoning with that one. We've got try all possible passwords starting with the letter A, 0%. Nobody chose that one. I guess number 2 would be send unexpected input to a web-based application. 17% said craft a packet with an additional VLAN tag. And 10% said command an entire botnet to connect to a web server simultaneously. So one of these has got to be the correct answer. So let's go and have a look at what the different options are for this. Man in the middle is a very, very interesting way to see what's happening on somebody's communication. And man in the middle becomes a very difficult problem to work through. It's where someone can really see everything you're doing without you knowing what's going on. Even worse, they can even change some of the information that is getting to you or that you are sending. Very, very difficult problem to have to deal with. You have no idea this redirection's taking place if it's done properly, and people can add other information to the communication you're sending or receiving. So you can send information, think you're communicating with a trusted source, but somebody in the middle may be injecting something very bad inside of that communication. A very good example of man in the middle is art poisoning. Art poisoning is a very common way to do man in the middle type attacks. And I think whenever we start looking at how to prevent man in the middle attacks, if you can help prevent things like an art poisoning, which is just one example of a man in the middle attack, that's a good way to stop these. In fact, if you watch my video on man in the middle attack on my Security Plus course, I demonstrate it. I have two machines. I perform an art poison, and suddenly now I'm performing a man in the middle. I can see everything going back and forth between two devices, it's kind of scary how easy that works. There are ways to mitigate man in the middle attacks. So if you want to learn more about that, it's all in the videos. I talk about how to mitigate some of those things. So for those of you that answered A, art poisoning, did a really good job. The 45% of you got that one absolutely right in there and being able to work through it. Well done. There is also, for those of you that answered, let's see, try all possible passwords starting with letter A. Nobody got that. That is, of course, a brute force attack. Commanding an entire botnet to connect to a web server simultaneously would be a distributed denial of service attack. Sending unexpected input to a web-based application. You can usually stop these types of unexpected input attacks through something like a web application firewall. And then, of course, you have craft a packet with an additional VLAN tag. That nesting of VLAN tags is something you do to hop between VLANs, that type of attack. So it becomes a little bit more of a challenge for those to have that there. So the answer in this case for man in the middle, art poisoning is the clearest example here, the best example, and really the only example in this entire list of a man in the middle attack. And it's something you absolutely need to know for your exam. The Network Plus exam is probably the one that has the broadest amount of information across all of those different types of exams. If you look at the A Plus and the Network Plus and the Security Plus, there are so many acronyms you have to know for Network Plus. It is incredible the amount of things you have to be able to understand. And so that's why I created these course notes so that you could have one place to go. I've taken all of the important things from my videos and I put them into one single place. This is one PDF you can purchase for $10 from my website, and I've taken everything. You could, of course, go through all of my videos and take your own notes. Go ahead. Absolutely. Go write all of these things down. But if you're someone who just would like everything in one single place, I've taken everything and put it into this PDF. Here's a good example of this. Here's the Network Plus PDF. I've got all of the different pieces. There's VPN communication, DHCP breakdown, how DNS works, how proxies work, all of these different interfaces and the bandwidths and all of those other things. It's all in here. It's all in the course notes. I've got pictures of all the connectors. I've got all the standards written out. Tried to make everything I could think of for you to have a good last study source. It doesn't replace my videos. It doesn't replace a good book. It doesn't replace you going through the effort of understanding these materials. But when you want one central place to go to understand it all, I think it's a very good wrap up of everything. Kind of consolidates everything into one single PDF. And it's a digital file. You can put it on all of your devices. You can print it out if you'd like to. It's whatever you need to do to be able to study this information. I tried to make it as easy as possible for you. You can find out more about this and purchase the study guides and course notes at professormesser.com/NPCN, Network Plus Course Notes. See what I did there? NPCN. You can also see the link on the main page of professormesser.com. There's a link there in the pull-down menus and on the main page to find information about the course notes. I've got course notes for A+, for Network Plus, for Security Plus, for everything I do. It's something that also helps keep the website running. So I want to thank people for also helping me along those lines as well. It's very important. I want to thank everybody who's helped support me by purchasing the course notes. And that can be found again, professormesser.com/NPCN. All right, I've got a question for you, and this is a fill in the blank. So think of this as a performance-based question. It's one where you now have to know the answer. I'm not giving you multiple choice. I'm not even going to show you multiple choice. In fact, on my side, it just looks like this. There's no multiple choice. You have to answer this by typing it in. So I guess when I mentioned you might want to grab a pencil and a sheet of paper, this might be what it's for. What is 11110011 binary in decimal? What could it possibly be? It's got to be one of these, right? It's got to be one number that's in there. I'm looking for a decimal number out of this binary. So I have a video. In fact, we were talking about this in the chat room yesterday, is that I have a video on binary math. And because of the way the Network Plus exam is laid out with the exam objectives, you may realize that my videos follow the exact format of the CompTIA exam objectives. But it's kind of useful to know binary math early on. I think they ask binary math way late in the Network Plus breakdown. It's kind of nice to know it earlier. So we go through a lot of things with subnetting before you ever get to binary math. I know. But I didn't come up with the what comes first and what comes second with what comes third. I just follow CompTIA's list. So make sure that you know exactly what these things are to be able to work through this. Oh, a lot of you are doing very well with your binary math. I think binary math is one of the easiest forms of math that you're going to have to do on the exam because it's really just multiplication and not even multiplication. It's more like addition and subtraction. I guess you could do multiplication as well if you're doing it. There's some shortcuts to be able to do these in a different form, but I think that's it's one you run into. You guys are doing very well. And the other screen here, I'm looking at your responses. I would say we almost have 100% right on this one. You folks are spot on with your binary math breakdowns. I'm not fooling anybody with this one, but I'm going to take you through how you would do this. It's a very, very important skill to have, not just for subnetting, but you're going to find binary math useful when setting permissions in Linux. There's a very good example of where binary math could help you. It's also useful if you do anything with computer science, which is more of programming and development. So make sure you understand about those things as well. Let's take you through the basics of this. Binary math, of course, it's all ones and zeros, of course. What I usually recommend is you create a conversion chart. You could, of course, do this in your head, but if you're just starting out, this helps you really understand how this binary works. I created just 8 of these, but you could, of course, keep this going off to the left. So here's 8 zeros, and above this, we'll start with the number 1, and we'll double it to number 2, and we'll double it to number 4, and we're just doubling the number to 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024. You can keep it going. You can keep going as far as you'd like to be able to do that. Becomes really useful to have that there. I think whenever I start working through this and have this on the page, it becomes really useful to have this view of the world. If you were someone who liked to work more with the exponents themselves, 2 to the first power, 2 to the second power, 2 to the third power, this is what they correlate to. So 2 to the 7th power is 128, for example. So that helps a lot when you're subnetting to know those numbers. But I'm someone who's not good at doing the calculation. 2 to the 7, what was that again? I don't remember. I prefer writing everything out, especially on an exam. I always forget everything when I walk into the door of an exam. Whatever I studied, it's gone now. It just left my head. So by taking and writing down on the whiteboard or the sheet of paper they give you before the exam, it becomes really useful because I can really look at, okay, what was that again? It's 128. I know I don't have to think about it. There's no thought process whatsoever. So our question was this one: what is binary 11110011 in decimal? So write out the decimal number. Write out 11110011, and then on the top of that, put my conversion chart. Write out 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. So now all we have to do is every time we see the number 1, bring that number down. So we have a 1 where there's a 128, bring the 128 down. When there's a 64, there's a 1 there, 64. We don't have a 1 over the 8, so we're not bringing the 8 down. There's not 1 over the 4, don't bring that one down. There's 1 over the 2, and there's 1 over the 1. So we have all these numbers we brought down, and we just add them all up. That's it. Simple addition to be able to do this. And that's it. You've now just done a binary conversion from binary to decimal. That's it. It's so simple to be able to work with these. And so if you answered 243 decimal like most people did, some of you did 242, Some of you did 240. It's time to work on that addition part of it. But that's most of you did really, really well with that one. I would say we got about a 98%, 95% correction rate on that one. So you folks did really well with your binary conversions. And now you know how to do it. Now you can do it every time. Take any binary number and you can absolutely create the decimal by following this procedure every single time. So well done with that one. Let's do one maybe you don't know the answer to. Here's a question for you. The question is, where would you most commonly find an 802.1q tag? Again, this is a two-step process for these. Being able to work through them. Where would you most commonly find an 802.1q tag? Would it be in an IPsec tunnel? Would it be in an Ethernet trunk? Would it be in a lag interface? Would it be in a management interface? Would it be in a proxy, or would it be in a spanning tree? It's got to be one of these, right? Where would I most commonly find an 802.1q tag for this? For the going back and answering this, if you think you know the answer, don't answer in the chat room. Go to Socrative.com, the room name Professor Messer, and you'll be able to do that. For those of you that we're talking about the subnetting, you don't get a calculator on the exam. So you have to add these things up yourself. Fortunately, there's not a lot of calculations you have to do. And most of it is really addition, subtraction. There's some of it might be, there's some multiplication, maybe some division that you might run into, but it's such a small part of the exam. You don't have to worry about that. And it's such a simple set of things you would need to do. A simple set of equations you would need to work on. So you don't have to worry about that piece of it. All you have to worry about is, do I know this content? So, yep, sorry, no calculator on the exam. I know they show that in the video. CompTIA has a video that shows you, here's what you can expect on the exam. And they show a calculator. I've never seen the calculator. I don't know what they're talking about. Maybe it's on one of these exams and I just missed it. Something useful to work through. So let's see how you guys are doing. I'm going to take a peek and see how you're doing with these. I think I've hit my 50% exactly on this one. It's really what I'm shooting for. I seem so happy, don't I, when I do that? I don't want to make it too easy, because if I make them too easy, 100% of you get it right, I get emails. I try not to have you send me emails. So I try to make half of you get it, and the other half, I don't know about that one. And plus, if you don't get it right, there's an opportunity to learn something. So I like to think that if you got it wrong, now you'll get it right on the exam. So that's an important part too. I think that's useful to have that there. It could not be two answers, because I asked you where you would most commonly find an 802.1q tag. Therefore, it cannot be two answers. In fact, there's no choice. There's really no question here. The right answer really jumps out at you. And let's see how we did on this one. Speaking of jumping out, let's see how we did. Got a good chunk of you that I've already listed here. The highest number here, 47%, said Ethernet trunk. The next highest would be IPsec tunnel at 21%. 12% said spanning tree. It's not a bad one. We're getting into smaller numbers there. About a tie for fourth would be a lag interface and a proxy, and then management interface at 5%. So really only one of these answers is going to be the real answer here that I'm looking for with this. When you're talking about an 802.1q tag, you're really talking about being able to send information over a trunked connection. We're talking specifically about VLANs and being able to work with VLANs. I think this comes in really handy when you're working through these pieces and knowing how to set up communication between different networks. A really good example is this picture I have here, where I have an Ethernet switch on one side and an Ethernet switch on the other. On both of these switches, I happen to have two VLANs. In fact, on your switch, you probably have many other VLANs as well, but I made this example very easy to follow. So you've got a VLAN 100 and a VLAN 200, and you can see I've color-coded them as well. Well, you've got these two switches, but you would like both of these VLANs to be able to communicate with each other across these switches, but still, of course, maintain the separation. You don't want VLAN 100 getting intermixed with VLAN 200 and vice versa. And you don't want to have to run a separate cable across the switches every time you wanted to run a separate VLAN connection. That would not scale very well, especially on these networks that have tens or hundreds of VLANs. You don't want to have to run tens or hundreds of cables. You want to run one cable or one fiber or one connection and then just run all of the little VLANs inside of that one connection. That's called trunking. And you can see here I have a trunk that I built. I've told this interface on this switch and this interface on this switch, you guys are going to trunk everything between each other. So when you send information across that, I want you to tag it. I want you to say, oh, this data is for VLAN 100. I'm going to send it over to you. On the other side, the other switch sees that and goes, oh, this is for VLAN 100. Let me tear the tag off of it and just send it to the VLAN 100 interfaces. That's why whenever we talk about tagging VLANs, you often see this standard of tagging referred to as 802.1q. If you're someone who's working with Cisco exams, for some reason they still talk about on their Cisco exams ISL, which was one of the very first types of tagging that was used, this inter-switch LAN communication, which was the precursor to the standard of 802.1q. It was a Cisco proprietary way of tagging. Nobody does that anymore. It just doesn't make sense. There's really no significant benefit to having a proprietary tagging method in a network, especially because you want to be able to have the communication between your Cisco switch work properly with other manufacturers' switches as well. So of course you would be able to do that, have that capability there. It becomes useful as well if you're just wanting to keep a standard up. You know, you plug in a protocol analyzer, you're hoping your protocol analyzer understands what communication is being sent, and if you're using standards, that helps quite a bit as well. That's why if we look at this answer that you had, Ethernet trunk, 48% of you got that one absolutely right. An 802.1q tag is really most commonly found on an Ethernet trunk. You generally are not sending tagged communications through an IPsec tunnel. You could, but that's not very common. And because it's not commonly, I'm asking you what is most commonly found for an 802.1q tag. It's going to be an Ethernet trunk. You don't commonly see tags being sent through an IPsec tunnel. You could send them. It's not common. You can send anything through a tunnel. Not what you would commonly see an 802.1q tag when you base it on all of these other options. Next up, 11% spanning tree. That spanning tree is a way to prevent loops in the switch networks. That's although your switch network is going to have probably a trunk connection on it, where really spanning tree is not where you see trunked communication. It's a way to keep your network up and running and prevent the loops. 6%, a lag interface. That's a link aggregation interface. And although it's common sometimes to connect up switches in link aggregation, that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing any trunking across them. It could just be a single link between those two that just are using multiple links, multiple physical interfaces to increase the overall total bandwidth available. Proxy is not where you would do tagging. Management information is not where you do tagging. The clear and most obvious answer here is B, Ethernet trunk. If you answered B, 51% of you got this one absolutely right. Well done. Well, let's go to something that I can follow now, which is pictures. I have a picture for you. What is this? What is this? This is also one that I gave you a fill in the blank. So another performance-based question, if you will. I'm not giving you multiple choice on this one. You have to answer this one. Don't answer in the chat room. If you think you know what it is, go to the Socrative.com, to the room name Professor Messer, or go to your Socrative app and be able to do that as well. That's one where I really do like being able to give you a picture of something. It always helps, I think, if you see something and you can work through what those things are. And then whenever I start working through these, becomes useful too. You're going to run into all kinds of different connectors. And on the Network Plus exam, you're absolutely going to get a lot of different connectors thrown at you. And this is one of them. So make sure you know what this is. Yes, you could put the initials for this connector. That works fine with me. Now, I will take that as a correct type of answer. I'm looking for the very specific connector, not the cable. I'm looking for the connector. And I get to tell some of you that what you think the answer is and what you have been told the answer is not correct. That's one of the reasons I did this one, because there's a lot of miscommunication about this kind of connector, interestingly enough, on this one. So have a look through here. What type of connector is this? Some of you are doing very well with this one. A lot of you know this one. Some of you know part of this one. Some of you think you know this one. Some of you are not even close. So, but I think the majority, we're getting about an 80% 85%. It's hard because I'm looking at just the text coming through. It doesn't evaluate and give me percentages. I'm kind of eyeballing it to see how you do with this particular connector. One nice thing on the Socrative app, notice that it pops up, has a larger picture that you can look at for these pieces. Yeah, it's kind of hard to search Google. You could do a TinEye, I guess, for this one if you really, really wanted to. It probably would pop up on TinEye because this is a stock photo that I use, that I license for these. So let's talk about this connector type and what this is. It's an interesting connector. You can see that it is one, looks like it goes in and then it locks in. It has this, you turn it and it kind of snaps there to lock in to this piece. It's a great connector to use because you notice if you try to pull on that connector, that's not going anywhere. It's got a pin on the connector itself. You can't pull that out. You have to untwist it to be able to pull it out, which is very useful to have that there. It doesn't screw in. It's kind of a quarter turn or a sixth of a turn to be able to have that there. Very useful. I use a lot of these connectors in the studio. The video that you're seeing right now uses a coax cable with these types of connectors, which are BNC connectors. These are bayonet connectors that were designed by Paul Neal and Carl Councilman. Bayonet, Neal, Councilman. So that's why it's BNC. Some of you gave me all kinds of different abbreviations in here. One that I commonly see is British Naval Connector. There's no such thing as a British Naval Connector. I don't know where that came from. It is not a British Naval Connector because there is no such thing. It is a Bayonet, Neal, Councilman. And that is one that you will find you use this a lot. Somebody mentioned this in the chat room the other day. When am I ever going to see a BNC connector? You see these all the time. You see these on DS3 connections. You see them on the video. I have video connections in here. HD video that we're running over this coax. Most commonly used on coax, certainly. If you go back to the old days of networking, I think this is where most people get hung up on it, is they think this was only used back in the 10base2 days when we were doing Ethernet networks over this coax. But you'll see if you walk into a network somewhere that has wide area network connections, you're absolutely not going to be able to get away from these BNC connectors. They're used on all of these DS3 WAN links and other types of connectors too. A lot of video connectors use BNC. Obviously, it's not a huge emphasis for the Network Plus, but you'll just find them everywhere. I have a kind of weird tool that's very long. It's about a foot long that I can use to grab the BNC connector and turn it because it's usually inside of a rack somewhere. So it's very useful to have that because they're difficult to work with. They're very bulky. You're talking about coax cables. They're very rigid to work with. It becomes a little bit more of a challenge to work through those. And so whenever I'm working on those, whenever I'm trying to get these particular systems running, it's useful to have the right tools to do this. So if you're doing anything with a WAN connection, you're doing anything with getting a system to be connected on DS3 and other types of connections, you're probably going to run into one of these BNC connectors. It's certainly one that if you walk into any data center, it's going to be in there somewhere. There's just no question that you're going to run into these. So for those of you, let's go back to our connectors and see how we did with these. Let me start on my screen over here. Let me talk and delay some of these things while I'm flipping my screens around on here. For those of you that answered what type of connector, we had a number of different answers coming through. Most of you said BNC though. Nice job on that one. You can see some of the answers I'm getting here. Some of you know the exact name, Bayonet Neal Councilman. Wow, I think you even spelled it right, which I would not have been able to do. So well done with that one. You've done better than I have with those. And remember, on your exam, you might be asked for something that is a fill-in-the-blank question. You may not be given those. It's one of those that's very common to see that for those and being able to work through them. Well, the GTS Learning is a good place to go if you ever need to apply some of these things. In the chat room earlier today, some folks were saying, how can I possibly remember all of these port numbers that I'm working with? And it's a good problem to deal with because you have so many different new ideas that are being thrown at you on this Network Plus exam. You have to know all the ports, all the protocols. There's encryption, there's IPsec communication, there's subnetting, there's communicating different devices together. And my answer was, well, you can just memorize the port numbers, or you could actually work with something that helps you apply the port numbers to what you're doing. Because if you ever are troubleshooting, or you're working through configuring a network or configuring a firewall, you're going to run into one of these examples of where this might be useful to have. One of the things that you could do then is maybe set up a lab. Well, the folks at GTS Learning have already done this with their live labs. You can go online into the cloud, and they've got these devices already running. Here's a Windows 7 device, connect to that. Here's a gateway device, and they've already got this lab. This one happens to be on understanding network protocols, and you can step through the lab one by one. In fact, this one takes you through on the introduction, configuring port 21 for FTP, configuring port 161 for SNMP, configuring port 23 for Telnet. It takes you through doing this on the system. So it takes you through the server step by step. You've got screenshots, kind of hard to see with my head there, but you get the idea. And you got these machines that are out on the network. These are Windows machines. These are virtual machines that are running. They're not emulated. These are live Windows systems, and you can do whatever you'd like. You can follow the things that you're working with on this test, on this lab, or you can do your own thing. You can go into the file system. You can transfer files around. It is a live system, as if you had all of these Windows machines set up in your studio, in your office, in your own labs, connecting them all together and getting them running. Very useful to have this, and it's got different labs for different types of the exam. Takes you through everything. In fact, I'll back up here through the Network Plus. I've got understanding network protocols. Here's other protocols, installing and configuring DHCP and DNS servers, configuring email protocols. It was the understanding network protocols I was just in, and look how fast this is to be able to get to all of these servers. You click on it. I don't have to load any additional software. I've got remote desktop. It's built into the browser. Who could really ask for more than that? And also, these live labs are at a special price because you're watching this. This is a price you can't get if you just go to the GTS Learning website. But if you use professormesser.com/netlabs, you'll be able to get a special price for 1 year's access to all of these labs. They also have practice questions too, and their Network Plus book is available online as well when you get these live labs. So one price kind of bundles in everything that you might need, and being able to set these things up. The live labs come in very, very handy, and being able to work with these might get you through some of those challenges you have with trying to apply back some of these things that are being asked of you on the exam. And I like the live labs as well. I'll sometimes go in there and try a couple of different things because I don't have a system set up in front of me. I'm on my laptop. I don't have my VMs loaded on there. I'll just connect to the live labs in the cloud, try running a few things and see, maybe take a screenshot, put it into a view here. Very useful to have that. And the live labs really work out quite nicely. You can learn all about those, professormesser.com/netlabs. And I want to thank GTS Learning for help sponsoring what we do here at Messer Studios. This is also the deal. I think it's $99 for the lab special. So make sure you take advantage of that. And there's an hour for free. You can get 1 hour and try it yourself, being able to work through those. Anytime I can get some of that online time for free, that's always good. All right, another question. Let's keep this party going. We've got the question is, which of these would commonly be used to monitor the power status of a data center? And I realize that some of you have never monitored the power status of a data center, so you're going to have to think about this one. I did give you a multiple choice with this. And again, we're asking a question which is very common on these exams. Which of these would be most commonly used? So you're trying to find the answer that is the most common answer for doing this. So your possible answers are SNMP, HTTP and HTTPS, SSH, SCADA, and Protocol Analyzer. One of these would be the most commonly used way to monitor the power status of a data center. This is obviously a big concern for data centers. If you've ever managed a data center, you've already run a data center. I have worked at an environment before where I have in the data center, they brought in a new server, they plugged it in, and the room went black because nobody realized how much power was being used in that data center. Nobody was tracking power utilization. They had no idea how much power a particular rack was using. And obviously, for a data center, that's incredibly important to be able to do this. You want to know how much power is being used, how much is available. Make sure you keep those things in mind and being able to work through them. This is one that you have to read these questions also very, very carefully. This is asking, how would you monitor power in a data center? And it's one that you will run into this very often, especially if you're managing a data center and being able to work through it. I think it's a useful thing to have. This particular question is one that's, I think, very real world. So hopefully you found the same thing when you were looking through these. Let's see how we did with this. Which of these would commonly be used to monitor the power status of a data center? How do we do? Well, let's see. 57%, well over the 50% I usually try to get to, said SCADA. 32% said SNMP, a strong number 2, and then single digits on the rest. Nobody really said protocol analyzer, SSH, and HTTP and HTTPS came in last on all of these. That's a challenge, isn't it? So which one would this be to monitor the power status of these systems? As I mentioned, monitoring power, especially in a data center, is incredibly important. If you want to be able to monitor individual devices, you want to know how is a particular device running. In fact, in my studio, I have a UPS that everything is plugged into, and it tells me what the current utilization is for the power. I keep my eye on that. It has metrics that I can reference and access. And that's an important part of this, is you need some way to constantly monitor this. One very common way, the most common way to monitor really anything in your data center, power, disk utilization, memory utilization, CPU utilization, network traffic, firewall utilization, is through a very common protocol called SNMP, the Simple Network Management Protocol. And usually for power devices, there's what we call there's a custom database, because every device collects a different set of statistics. The structure of what statistics a device collects is called a management information base. And it's really just a standard way to describe, here's the statistics that this device commonly collects. So you will see people say, I need to load a MIB up into my SNMP management tool. It's a custom MIB. It's custom for this power device. Okay, great. Every SNMP management device allows you to add custom MIBs. So now it's able to even find even more information. So if you're monitoring a power outlet, a UPS, a router, a switch, air conditioning system, ventilation, all of those things are usually connected to this SNMP system. You probably, even in a large data center, have a central power distribution system that everything is coming through. What a great place to go to get an overall view of power utilization and being able to work through it. This is, as I mentioned, an incredibly important thing you need to be able to do, because you can very, very quickly run into a problem with power that could have absolutely been avoided. If you just don't plug that last device in, everything would have still been running. But in my case, they plugged that thing in and everything went dark. That was a little bit of a challenge with this. So if we look at our answers here, this is one where it kind of went a different way than what we were expecting. If you answered A, it's the Simple Network Management Protocol, 34% of you got this one absolutely right. Those that you answered SCADA were probably thinking monitoring power systems. You're monitoring mechanical units, a generator that's running. I'm asking you about the power in a data center, not the power in a power plant. I'm asking you about not a manufacturing facility, not somebody that's got an enormous piece of machinery that has this very non-standard or very unusual way of communicating. You would certainly use SCADA to be able to communicate with industrial devices. But power is not an industrial device. It's a power strip. It's a power distribution unit. It's one that's very commonly done. So in this case, SCADA would not be the right answer. SNMP is clearly the most common way to monitor the power status of a data center. And if you are someone who's getting into monitoring of networks and devices, then SNMP is absolutely going to be something you use all the time. It's a very valuable tool, especially in the data center, to be able to work through these things. And I used it. I've set up so many different SNMP management systems in my lifetime. I've probably done one of everything, it seems. And they all work exactly the same way. They request information from a device, you get information back. What a great way to monitor power, servers, security devices, or anything else. Now, we did a binary to decimal question earlier. So I thought I would ask you a subnetting question, but this is one you probably won't have to do much calculation with. Everybody seems to like the subnetting question, so I'm going to ask you one here, which is, how many host addresses are available on a /24 network? This is a fill in the blank, another performance-based question. I'm not sure if you guys are liking these performance-based questions or not. You're going to have to tell me later on in this one. Now, if you are somebody who's watching this presentation today for continuing education units, then you're going to want to go to the top of the Professor Messer website or the bottom. There's a Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link, give me your name, give me that you've watched the February 2016 Network Plus study group, and give me the special code word of /24, and I'll know that you watched this particular study group. Maybe you know what the number of host addresses are on the /24 network. Remember, I'm asking you for the host addresses on the /24 network. It's a very specific request in being able to work through it. Make sure you answer with what you think that might be on a /24 network. It's /24, I think, is the important part of this, isn't it? That's the way you really determine what this might be and how it's working through these pieces. Very useful to have that there. This is a kind of a subnetting question. It kind of brings in a couple of different things you need to know. And I think you've obviously noticed a trend with being able to calculate in binary. This is kind of one of those questions about being able to calculate in binary and to work through it. Pretty important, I think. This is how many host addresses are available on /24. I'm looking through the list on my side. Most of you did really well with this one. Not as many people answering this one as they normally do on the multiple choice, I will tell you that. But they're trickling in. I'm getting the answers coming in. Most of you did really well with this one and knowing the host addresses. There's a little bit of a trick with this one. Let's kind of step through this. That /24 is something called CIDR notation. CIDR. We call it CIDR. It's not spelled out CIDR. We just kind of call it the CIDR notation. This is a method of writing down subnet masks where we don't have to write out the entire subnet mask. For example, a 192.168.1.1/24. It was that /24 there that I was asking you about. The 24 is referring to the number of subnet bits. Let me get my head out of the way, and you'll be able to see this. In fact, you can see the subnet mask. I've written out the subnet mask 255.255.255.0. And the way I knew that that was the subnet mask is I wrote out 24 ones as part of the subnet mask. That's what the /24 is referring to. It means in the subnet mask, the first 24 bits are ones. And if you're writing out an IPv4 address, that means you got 8 more bits at the end, and being able to be able to do that. There's the 8 bits at the end are going to be zeros. So /24 means 24 ones. And if you now perform that binary calculation, that binary to decimal conversion, those 8 ones is 255, these 8 ones is 255, these 8 ones is 255, and these 8 zeros is a 0, obviously. So the real challenge now is knowing where to get all of these ones and zeros from. Now, we know that we can calculate the number of hosts based on everything that's not masked. So everywhere you see a 0 means that you can now calculate how many hosts are on the network. So again, you would calculate, if you took all of those 8 zeros and turned them into ones and calculated it out, you would get a total of 256 possible addresses, because it's between number 0 and number 255. That's 256 total. But of course, on a subnet, you're only able to use everything except the first address and the last address. The first address is the network address. The last address is a broadcast address. So whenever you're calculating the number of hosts, it's going to be the total number of possible addresses minus 2. So 256 minus 2 is 254, which means that the question that we had about which one of these is going to be, in fact, I'll go back to this previous, how many host addresses are available on a /24, it means 254 is going to be the right number. It's not 255, it's not 256. Some of you did answer 256 in there. It's 254 with those. So make sure you know your calculation with those and being able to put together all of the different binary settings that we were working through. It becomes very useful to have that be able to work through those. There's a lot to know for the subnetting piece of this. My videos go into quite a bit on the subnetting side and being able to work through them. And I think that's an important consideration. One thing I did want to make you aware of was in the last couple of weeks, CompTIA has updated their exam objectives. They updated really the format of the objectives. You can see them listed here on the screen. They're very different than what they used to look like. Unfortunately, CompTIA has made them more difficult to use. They've put them into 3 columns rather than a single column, which I guess saves space, but it now becomes more difficult to know what's under a particular subcategory. But I guess they're prettier, so you got that going for you on there. But you can see, for example, here you've got copper cables, and these are subsets of copper cables, and it changes the column, and you kind of get mixed up about where this is in the list, in the column categorizations. Yeah, I don't like the new format either. I'm with you on that. I think they made a huge mistake in going to this new format. They did not change any of the content. So don't be thrown that, hey, this is a new exam objective. This is obviously something brand new. I need to now look at this because all the things have changed. Nothing's changed. It's exactly the same content. They just put it into this different format. I don't know why they did it. I don't know what they were thinking. They just did. One thing they also did on this, for some reason, I'll show you, the last update to the exam objectives, I'm going to look on my screen here real quick. The last update to the N10006 exam objectives is they number them. There's a version number at the bottom, and I have version 5. There's probably a version 6 or 7 or 8 of the exam objectives. But if you were to look at the exam objectives that they've released, down at the bottom, it's now version 1 of the exam objectives. They've taken the entire format. So now it went from version 5 to version 1. We've now gone backwards in time. But this, even though this says version 1, I guess they're going to start the numbering over, which kind of completely defeats the point of having version numbers, but I wasn't the one who did this. So that was, I don't know what they were, I don't know. I'm not sure where they were going with that, but there it is anyway. That, of course, gives you some perspective anyway on some things you should look out for. Nothing changed with the content, though. So don't worry that this is all something new, nothing changed. It was just, it looks different. That's the only different in here. And I guess it's prettier. It's less functional. I think it's less easier to use. It's less of a checklist now. If you really want to help people, turn it into a checklist. That's really what it should be. Use the exam objectives as a checklist. If you know everything in the exam objectives, you're going to pass your exam. CompTIA does not tend to go outside the scope of those exam objectives, and they will possibly tell you anything that might be on that list. So if you know everything that's on the exam objectives, you got it. You're done. Well, remember, I do one of these every month. So, of course, next month will be the Network Plus Study Group. We'll be live on Wednesday, March the 9th at 12 noon Eastern Time. If you're watching this on a replay and this is nowhere close to March 9th, you may be watching this months later, you can, of course, always go to professormesser.com/calendar. And that will be a very good way to go through these pieces. People in the chat room think that I almost lose it. I never lose it. There's nothing phases me. Ask anyone who's online. They will never be phased with that piece. Well, that brings us to the end. Can you believe it? Another hour of our Network Plus study group. If you're watching this live, you can stick around. We've got another hour where I'll try to sit here and answer questions from the chat room. I'll open up the phone lines. We'll get some of those things going as well. If you're just watching for the study group, thanks for joining us. And we'll have another one of these next month. Feel free to join along anytime. You can watch all of the archives as well on the professormesser.com website. Thanks for joining us this month, though. We'll see you next time on the Network Plus study group. And like challenge accepted. We're now going to make Professor Messer lose it. What a great idea. What a fabulous idea. That was a quick bunch of, I think I got through more questions this time than I did last time. So at least I feel like the mission there was accomplished. Let's start up the show. And last show we did last week, we ran into a problem with the calls. And I believe we've corrected it. So we got that going on. I'm going to, while you're doing this, you can see the phone line there. I'm not in there yet, but I will be shortly. But the lines are open at 855-785-RJ45. If you're calling on Skype, you can call for free by using +1 855-785-7545 and go in there as well. Let's call in. Is this going to work? There we go. Oh, I can hear.
Thank you for calling.
Well, you're welcome. You're very welcome. Let's see. What do I type here? Do I type that?
Your 6-digit PIN number.
Okay. They changed the lady's name.
That was an invalid PIN for
No,
Power
it wasn't.
107.
That wasn't right.
Please re-enter your 6-digit PIN.
Oh, boy.
That was an invalid PIN for Power 107.
Maybe a very short call for me to be able to work through calls today. Let's try it again, shall we? It probably didn't type in the right number to begin with.
Thank you for calling.
I bet I didn't, because it was a nice probably pound sign, right?
Enter your 6-digit
See, it's a
PIN
lady.
number.
I have all my stuff set to a lady.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, lady. It's good to be here. So now, if you wanted to, you can call in. Of course, go to the chat room as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, go to professormesser.com/live, and you will, of course, be able to participate in the chat room there and ask questions right here. I'm watching people ask questions in the chat room, send information in the chat room. Yeah, you like that Atari controller? The picture of the Atari controller in there. My son drew that many, many years ago. I'm one of those dads who puts up all his kids' stuff and embarrasses them, but that was just cool. He did that. He was so young when he did that, but he loves retro gaming systems. So the old Nintendo, the old Atari. He has a real passion for those, and so he drew this. I thought that is the coolest picture ever of an Atari joystick, because I grew up obviously with the Atari 2600. So that was really cool. I'm like, oh, that's going. Not only am I keeping that, that's going in my background. It's going in the set of the studio to have this there. So I like it too. It's really awesome to have that there. When did I lose it? Did I lose it already? I'm pretty sure I haven't lost it. I haven't lost anything. There's quite a bit of things in the background there, isn't it? There's pictures. You can probably sort of see the, now I guess you can't see the cricket bat. You can see the cricket ball. You can see the Cube Mac. There's a HF receiver, high frequency for those. To have that there, that's what that is. Okay, let's answer some questions from the chat room. And I've got other questions here as well that you've sent in through the month. I will make sure I pull those up and have those available for you to answer. So, where can you get additional information on the Network Plus lab questions? I'm assuming you're referring to the performance-based questions, which are a very good question to ask. Performance-based questions, I think people worry about more than they need to. I think it's a fear of the unknown. But I think it's something that would be useful for you to know about, because it's one that is absolutely going to make you feel better on the exam. Well, CompTIA has a video where they take you through the exam. This video is called Taking a CompTIA Exam. And by the way, I don't know where these people are taking an exam. I don't know the last time I took an exam on an LCD display. For some reason, I walk in and it's 1982. And there's this big CRT monitor and a mouse that still has a ball in it, and it doesn't work very well because it's dirty. These people are in the nicest exam facility ever. And so a good reason to go from place to place and see what kind of exam facility they have. I've literally taken exams in a closet before for those. This video what's nice about this video is they take you through all of these things you need to know for the exam. So they tell you, here's what you'll see. This is what the screen looks like. There's a timer. This says calculator. That's what I mentioned earlier. Like, I've never seen a calculator button. They give you what the screen looks like, so you can at least feel more comfortable when you sit down ready to take the exam. And you can flag questions so you can go back to them later, which is nice. They have multiple choice questions. They have others that are multiple response, so you'll get those. And then they have these, and this is really what CompTIA calls performance-based where you can drag and drop different questions. Here's one with an exhibit. They have ones that pop you at the command line and ask you to perform a function. Very useful there. So that's where whenever you start going through, what's this exam really going to be like? And it tells you right away, here's the answer. So if you're interested in seeing this video, it is taking a CompTIA exam. It's on the CompTIA YouTube page. They've got a number of different videos there and be able to work through those. But that's whenever people say, what should I expect with these performance-based questions? And in the chat room, a very good example of a nice strategy is the performance-based questions are usually presented first in the exam. And you might have 2 or 4 or 6 or more of these performance-based questions. And I think a very good strategy is just skip them. The CompTIA exams are non-linear. So you can pop around to any question you want at any time. So you can skip all of those and go straight to multiple choice, which you may be more comfortable with. In fact, it might even make jog your memory a bit on different performance-based questions. And then on the performance-based questions, you can really drill down from there. Go back to those, go, oh yeah, I remember because I had a multiple choice question that now reminds me what I should be typing in on this performance-based question. I think that's a great strategy to be able to do it. That way you kind of jump to things you know, get into the groove, and then go back and the adrenaline has burned itself off and you can really concentrate on those and being able to work through those. That's the way I like to do it too. I like it a lot. Oh, the warm beverage today is a hot chocolate. Hot chocolate's a warm beverage. I'm not sure why that's interesting for anyone, but there you go. This is one where I was working through that. There is not a limit for skipping questions. You can skip all of them and go to the very last question if you want and work backwards if you want through all of them. It doesn't matter. It takes you to this flag page. In fact, the way this works, let me find it in the video. Since they have it here, there's a final screen, a review screen that gives you a list of all the questions. And on any question, you can even put a flag. You can mark it, flag it, so that you can even see that you flagged it. But it will list out all of the questions. And from here, you can jump around to whichever one you want. Very useful to have that function. I use that a lot when I'm taking an exam. Because what I do, if I know, here's my strategy. If I know that I got this answer absolutely right, there's no question that I knew the answer to this one. They asked me something that dealt with a number. They asked me something I knew it. I knew this one solid. I don't mark it. I don't flag it. If I'm not 100% positive about this particular question, I flag it. And I flag it because sometimes I read it wrong. And when I go back over it, I realize that I read it wrong, or I think I know it, but I'm not. I think I got this one. I'm just not sure. I flag it. So at the end, I end up having 3/4 of my exam flagged. And I'm trying to go through as quickly as possible. There's obviously a timing thing. You have to work through how much time you think you're going to need as well. But go through that. If you think you now cannot have enough time, I now start going through the flagged one at a time, jumping around if I have to. And if I look at that one, I go, okay, I may not be 100% on that one, but now that I've gone through the second time, I'm as sure as I can be. Let me remove the flag and go to the next one. So my second time through, I've gotten rid of a vast majority of those flags, and I really may only have 10 more flags left. And then I can really break it down even further from there and go through those last 10 to see, is there something I might have missed? Is something else I answered, maybe jogged my memory with this one? That happens a lot. To go through. So take advantage of the flagging feature. It can really make the difference between being solid and having this, passing this, and not. It's a timing thing though, isn't it? Because if it's taken you a long time to go through the exam the first time and you flagged most of it, you're not gonna have time to go back through. So you're the best arbiter of how fast you can go through this exam. So don't spend any amount of time. If you get stuck on a question, flag it and keep going. Flag it and keep going. You only have 90 minutes to get through what could be possibly 90 questions. So that's an important consideration is time. So just keep it moving. Oh, I don't know what they're talking about. Flag it and come back. I'm going to hit the ones I know so I don't run out of time. I've answered the things I know as well as I can answer them. Now let me go back, take a breath, and go back through those flag questions. I think that's just a good way to do it. I'll try to answer all of the questions on the exam. You are penalized if you don't get one right. I think the way they do the measurements, nobody really knows how they grade these exams, but it's a scale from 100 to 900. And I think what happens is for everyone you get right, they add on a certain number of points. And I think every question is worth a different number of points. This is pure speculation, by the way. Nobody knows. CompTIA doesn't share this information. But what if you don't answer a question, you're obviously not going to get any points. So don't leave a question blank. If you get it wrong, you're not going to get points anyway. The only time you're really losing is if you've never had an opportunity to answer it and you could have gotten it right, or at least take a stab at it. If it's multiple choice, fill in every possible multiple choice you've got. Don't ever leave a multiple choice blank on a CompTIA exam. You've missed an opportunity. Even if you didn't know the answer, you've got a 25% chance, 20% chance to get it right. So make sure you go in and check those. For the performance-based questions, CompTIA has now said publicly there are some performance-based questions where you could possibly get partial credit, but there aren't many of them, which makes me believe that there's probably very few at all that you would get partial credit, which means on the performance-based, you're either getting full credit or no credit. It's kind of a bummer because some of these performance-based questions can be relatively advanced in the amount of information they're asking for and expecting you to do. So don't be thrown by that too much, but that's one where I really get into. For those of you asking CIDR block questions in the chat, it's kind of difficult to do this live with me chatting, but we just did a CIDR block question near the end of /24, and I showed you how to calculate all the 24s. You calculate with your binary chart. Well, write out 22 bits. How many are left over? Calculate what the maximum would be. You add up all of those different bits to be able to do it. So the real piece of this to take away on your performance based is don't count on partial credit. You really can't calculate at all how many you need to get right because each question is, we believe, worth a different number of points. So you really have no idea. So the question that was asked earlier in the chat is, how do I know then if I'm ready to take this exam? Go to the exam objectives. Go through all of the exam objectives and use those as your master checklist. If you can go through everything that's in the exam objectives and check all of them off, then you know everything you need to know for this exam. If you can check everything off in the exam objectives, you're going to pass. You've got it. Make sure you go through that piece. One of the things you'll notice is I don't do a lot of subnetting on these study groups. You might get one question about subnetting. You could get two. I doubt you'll get three. You might get zero, by the way. The subnetting part of the Network Plus exam is a very, very, very small part of the overall knowledge that you need to know for this exam. So if you are someone who just can't get the subnetting, it's driving you crazy, and you're spending an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out how subnetting works, just drop it and go through this. Oh, aren't we delightful? This is one where I think I can use some of these great capabilities of my chat to fix things that normally would not be fixable with this piece. There is a lot to consider for the Network Plus exam. Subnetting is not a huge part of it, so don't get wrapped around the axle. Don't worry about subnetting so much then. Leave it for something else. Come back to it later. There's so many other things you need to know that have nothing to do with calculating subnets. Now, it's very different if you go to a different exam like a Cisco exam. A lot of people go from Network Plus to a CCENT or a CCNA exam on the Cisco side. The Cisco exams are very subnetting intensive. You need to know how to subnet and be able to calculate the number of hosts in a subnet, what the network address is, and what the broadcast address is in 5 to 10 seconds. And if you can't do it, you're not ready to take the Cisco exams, period. That's my recommendation. There's some very easy ways to do subnetting, though, and some nice charts you can draw out on the chart on the piece of paper or the whiteboard they give you before going in. And that's what I think is your best bet. But for the Network Plus, I think you're okay. I think you're all right to have to deal with that. It's one of those where don't worry about the subnetting on Network Plus. Worry about it for the others. There's no question that it's important for the Cisco exams. Having taken the Cisco exams myself, you got to know subnetting. You got to know it hard, and you got to be able to do it fast. You got to be able to do it quick, and be able to work through those. I think it's very useful to have that. I'd love to do other certification exams. The Cisco ones would be great to do. It's really just about timing. How much time it takes a lot of time to do a set of videos, and it's a huge investment. And that's why I have a list. I keep a list of what's coming next. I have a lot going on this year. So there will be more videos of different types of topics, no question. Let's go to the calls. There's a 559 area code. Are you there? Caller, what's your name?
Hi, hello, I'm on the air.
Yes, you are on the air. What's your name?
I am Varun from Trinidad and Tobago. How are you?
Hey, Varun. Thanks for calling.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know, I did actually call here once before. That was like a long time ago, but I am A+ certified now.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm currently studying for the Network Plus.
Nice.
All right, but I wanted to ask you a couple of questions that's not really related towards Network Plus or anything, but it's more like on the Android side of things. So
Okay.
it's like the updating system. I think it's really inconsistent and broken. So what are your thoughts on that exactly?
Just from the perspective of Android in general?
No, well, yeah.
It's something I've run into. One of my previous jobs I had was one where it was a security company, and we had some mobile device managers, which are, for those of you that have worked with these in the past, a mobile device manager is a piece of software, or in some cases hardware, that allows you to manage everybody's mobile device in your organization. So everybody can walk around with their iPhone or their Android device or their Windows Phone device, and you as an administrator can manage it from one central place. And one of the biggest challenges we had on the Android side was with malware, because things can just get installed onto these devices from anywhere. And so mobile device manager is nice because you can limit what people are able to install, or you can have things scanned before they go into a system. It's a significant challenge for administrators, and it's one that I think that the folks that are working through Android, it's your benefit of being open source and allowing anybody to install anything. That's a great benefit, but there's a big negative that comes with that, and it's controlling what type of malicious software is out there and how it might get onto your system. It's probably one of the biggest challenges with Android, just beyond the normal multiple hardware and having to deal with different types of software challenges on there. I think the security is a significant concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, the updating is a concern for me as well, because I have an LG G4 that's from the Carry Unlock US Cellular one.
Right.
And I heard that they were giving out lollipop, but I heard about people just being stuck in boot loops as they install it. So that kind of has my concern as well.
That's another thing. You're sort of stuck with whatever the carrier is deciding you should have on that particular device, which I get, because they know what software is going to work well with their network and the way that their systems work. But whenever I see a new version out, I want to upgrade then. I'm the kind of person, I like the new version. There's some features in there I need.
Me too.
You may not even have the choice on some carriers. They just may not be planning to go to whatever that version is. That's really frustrating to me. I know for iOS, because I normally will use an iOS device, I never even think about that because it's just rolled out. I use AT&T, and whenever Apple releases a new version, I just install the new version because they've already worked with the carriers to test this and have it available, and they're not going to release the code until everybody says, okay, it's good, we can do that. It's just a different perspective, I guess, and it's really up to your style of computing. I love the Android operating system. I love the openness, but there's just a lot of shortcomings.
Yeah, that's the thing about it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it is. Also, what kind of equipment do you use for your making your videos and stuff?
Wow, that is a question that's difficult to answer shortly, but I will give you.
Well, it doesn't have to be a whole lot of stuff.
Okay.
I mean, just like the simple stuff.
I'll give you a quick breakdown. When I started doing this, I was using screen capture software on a Windows device. It could also be on a Mac. It doesn't matter, because there's CompTIA. There's a lot of tools out there, even free tools, that captures the screens extremely well. And I used CompTIA quite a bit back then. And I would capture data capture my talking head, if you will, that's up in the corner. I capture just with a standard off-the-shelf consumer camera. And it was one at the time I captured to tape. Now, of course, whenever we capture on these devices, they capture digitally onto an SD card, which makes it so much easier. And then I take both of those feeds, the video that I captured on the screen and the video of my talking head, and I would bring them together in some video editing software and edit them together so that I could get rid of the parts that I screwed up, and I could change the way the screen was looking, and I could adjust it however I wanted to do. I could change the audio levels. I could put a picture in a picture just like I do, and it's all built in. And I've used through the years Sony Vegas. I've used Adobe Premiere Pro, and I'm doing everything on a Mac, so now I use Final Cut X to be able to do editing, but you could do it in anything to be able to make that happen. Through the years, the process has evolved, and so I've got separate video recorders that are separate to what I'm doing. So the camera is not doing the recording on the camera. My screen is not doing a recording on the screen or the computer. It just takes the video from those things and has a separate recorder, but the process is the same. I've got now two files. One is my desktop, one is the talking head. I bring it into a video editing software. I sync up the video editing based on the audio from both of those, and I just edit away from those two things. Some of this software like CompTIA will do a picture in a picture if you have a screen cam or something connected to your computer so that it does all on one screen. There's ways to get around some of those pieces, but the basic structure of how I do all of these and how I work through it has never changed this entire time. It's important for me to have my little talking head in the corner. That was an important piece whenever I started creating these videos. It's an important, I think it's nice to have there. And a lot of people, some people don't like it. Some people do like it, but that's how I've decided I want to do my videos. And I just do it the same way. You could do this for free with free software. You could do it for cheap with cheap software, or you could spend way too much money like I did and do it in a big studio like this. It just depends.
Okay, great. One last question. Would you say A+ and Network Plus are good prerequisites for a degree program?
I don't you think for a college or a community college degree program?
Not really. I'm talking more like a university.
Okay. I think at the university level, they're going to give you everything you need to know to be able to effectively learn what's in these certification exams. And a number of universities, their class takes you through what this material is. And at the end of the class, you take your Network Plus or your A+ certification exam, which I think is a great way to do it, by the way. I don't know that it would necessarily gives you an advantage. Obviously, if you know this material going into a class like that, you're way ahead of the game. You already know about networking. You already know the connectors. You already know about subnetting. You already got some familiarity with some of these very larger networking concepts. You've been now introduced to the acronyms. So some of this isn't as scary as it would be when you're hit across the face for the very first time. But I think I don't think it's necessary, though. I don't think it's a requirement going into these university programs because they'll teach you that in the class, and in many cases prepare you in the class for taking the exams. You might even want to check with your university and see if they are a CompTIA partner. They might even have discounted exam vouchers to use that are extremely discounted over the normal price, some cases 50% or more. So it may be worthwhile to see if they're offering something like that.
Sure. Okay, well, I guess that's it for now. Well, I'll see you on your next broadcast.
Thanks for calling, Varun. Take care.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye. There's a lot to consider when going into some of these classes. I wish more places did this type of training. I think there's a huge emphasis right now. I'm seeing it at the high school level and the college level, and probably not as much at the college level, but certainly at the governmental level. For some reason, a huge emphasis in computer science and not as much emphasis in IT. And I think our priorities are switched there. I guess there's an argument. I guess somebody who's a computer science person would argue with me there. I think there's a much more of a broader IT emphasis that needs to be made. For some reason, when our elected officials say you need to know about computers, they think you need to know programming. And programming is certainly an important aspect of knowing how to do things. I'm not a programmer. I think I've done pretty well in life with what I need to know, because IT is so much bigger than just programming, but they don't know. They're not computer people. We need somebody to help guide them and help them understand that computers are more than just programming. Let's go to 901 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? I hear something there. Are you there, caller? Sort of there. I'm gonna stick you back in the queue. Oh wait, there. Let me pick you back up. Let's go back to this queue. I'll pick you back up again. Are you there, caller? He's not there. Let me put you back in the queue. Let's go to the next caller in. This is great. We just do it on the fly. The 513 area code. Are you there, caller?
Yes. I was wondering if maybe you could do a video series for the Server Plus, the new series of the Server Plus.
Boy, it's one of those that's on the list. It seems more people are asking me about Server Plus lately. Are you in a program, or is there something that's driving you towards the Server Plus over something else? Did you catch that? Did you catch that question? You might want to listen to the feed there. Is there something that's maybe driving you more towards Server Plus, or is there a reason you want to get the Server Plus certification?
No, I've taken a class for it already, and they just introduced the new
Go ahead. Don't listen to the stream, but there were some new exam objectives they worked on. I think they worked very hard to get some new objectives out. And I like that they're continuing on with Server Plus. And I'm seeing more. The reason I ask is I'm seeing more people ask about it. So I'm trying to figure out, why is there more of a popularity lately for Server Plus than it seems to have been in the past? And it may just be that it's been out for a while now and people are using it. I was just wondering if there was a particular thing that was driving you towards that certification.
Well, it was the school that I went to offered it, and in the program that they have, and I took it, and now I'm waiting to take that. I'm preparing for the certification, and I thought maybe a video series might be a good way to prepare for the test.
It's a good cert. I think it's a good certification. I like the content that's in the exam objectives. It's a very good one to get you familiar with what you might run into if you're someone who's administering servers, especially in a data center, or you're on a team of people that administers operating systems and servers. I think it's a good start along those lines. It's maybe a good precursor to some of the more advanced Microsoft certifications, for example. But what I don't see is, from my perspective, is I have to measure out how popular is a certification versus the content I'd be creating, because it's very time consuming, obviously, to create a video series. But I just seem to be a lot more people asking about it these days. The place that I usually go, and people mention this in the chat room too, is that I'll usually go to where people are posting job descriptions. So I'll go to monster.com, Career Builder, Indeed, Dice. I'll go to the big ones, and I'll see if I can't find these different jobs in data centers and what they're asking for. And I'll try to see how many people are asking for the Server Plus. Often what's driving people asking me is that the employers are asking the potential employees for these certifications, and it eventually trickles down to where they're saying, I need some study materials. And I haven't seen a big uptick currently in the Server Plus, but this may be a good opportunity for me to go back and do some more research. I need to mark that down. I have my marketing person, she does tons of research for me. I may mark that down for something for her to go out and see, where are we right now? We'll do some market studies and see if that's something people might want to do. It's on my list. I can't say it's at the very top because of the popularity, but I think it's a fine cert, and that might come in handy if you're planning to get into that line of work.
Okay.
Thanks for calling. There's
welcome.
I see CompTIA is doing a lot there along those lines with other certifications too. They're doing more security. They just asked for a group of people to do a higher level security certification, which I thought was interesting. They were looking for people that would come in. The way they do these certs is they get people who are knowledgeable in a topic to go to the headquarters in Chicago, and they just spend a week or so creating content for those exams. I noticed they were doing that for a higher level certification, a security certification. So that was interesting, I think. Let's go to 661 area code. Are there, caller? What's your name?
Hi, Professor.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. What's your name?
My name is Susan.
Hey, Usa.
My name is Susan.
Thanks for calling.
I'm fine.
No, thank you very much, sir, about your videos. It's very helpful for us. I just wanted to tell you I passed yesterday 801.
Nice.
Okay. Thank you. What you recommended me for should I download the Windows Vista because I have Windows XP and Windows 7 or download Windows Vista or just buy a live app from GTS Learning?
You could kind of go either way with it. There are some, you obviously saw today, I was demonstrating the live labs on Network Plus. GTS Learning obviously has live labs for A Plus as well that include Vista, Windows XP, and all the things you need to know for the 802, because obviously the 802 has Windows XP on it as well. I will tell you that there's a free alternative as well. It's kind of hard to find somebody who's got a license of Windows XP and Windows Vista. Maybe easier to find a Windows 7 license. That could be a challenge as well. But there is a website, I've mentioned this before, but this is one you should know about, modern.ie. If you go to modern.ie, it actually takes you to a Microsoft website that is the Windows Developer Technologies website from Microsoft. This has on it in a tools pull-down menu a set of virtual machines where you can download, if you're running Windows, Mac, or Linux, you can run whatever virtual machine you're running. You can download Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10 in a pre-built virtual machine. So if you're running, say, VirtualBox on your computer, you can download Windows XP for VirtualBox, and you can download that executable. Actually, it's a zip file that has the virtual machine in it. And it's absolutely free as long as you're using this for non-production use. I've read through the end-user license agreement, and you're absolutely licensed to be able to use this for your lab purposes. You can't beat free. So if you're somebody who just needs the operating system to get familiar with it, that might be a good free alternative. If you're someone who prefers more of a structured lab that takes you through connecting devices together, that takes you through understanding more about structured what you should learn for the certification, the GTS Learning Live Labs might be a good choice. And you can always use that link on my website to go to the Live Labs and get your free hour and try it out yourself, or try the modern.ie and you can run the VMs for free on your computer.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you again for that. It was very helped me pass 801.
Congratulations on the 801 and best of luck with your 802. Let me know if you need any help.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
There's a lot to know for the 802. I use that modern.ie site a lot because I can download any operating system instantly, and a lot of the screenshots that are in my videos come directly from the things that I've downloaded. And some of the demonstrations I do on my 801 and 802 videos, I'm using Microsoft's virtual machines. Why wouldn't we? It's absolutely free to be able to do that and have that there. I find this really, really useful. There are a lot of people are asking this month about the differences between the 800 and the 900 series exams. If you go to professormesser.com/FAQ, that is the master list of my frequently asked questions. And one of the frequently asked questions at the very top is, what's the difference between the 800 series and the 900 series? Which, of course, now you can't see because all the chats have come up. What is the difference between 801 and 901? 802 and 902. I've got a link there that takes you to both a written breakdown of the differences between those two exams, and I created a video for you as well that describes what's new on the exam. So whether you like to read it or like to watch it, I've got both of those available. It's probably the best way to get a breakdown of what the main differences would be. I think that's probably the best place to go for those. It's a good, quick way to go through those pieces. Let's go to the 813 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yes. My name is Ivan.
Hi, Ivan. Thanks for calling.
I have a quick question. I'm looking to get into the CCNA. So I wanted to know if the lab for the CCNA that you get on eBay is good, like to train yourself.
It's we were talking about this in the chat room earlier, And one of the things I mentioned, for those of you not familiar with the Cisco series of certifications, their CCNA is kind of what they call, it's a set of exams. Most people, when they talk about CCNA coming out of the Network Plus, they're referring to the CCNA routing and switching exam, which you can take as a single exam or you can take as two separate exams depending on your level of knowledge. If you take and pass the first exam, you get what's called the CCENT, which is their entry networking technician certification. If you take both of the exams or you take the rolled up exam, you get the Cisco Certified Network Associate. One of the things that is a challenge, though, is it's really hard to get hands-on with Cisco equipment for some reason. And these Cisco exams, you need hands-on. As someone who's gone through these Cisco certification exams, you would do very badly if you didn't have a way to log into a switch, log into a router, set up these connections. Even for the CCENT, you're doing routing protocols, you're changing around different routing mechanisms, switching configurations, spanning tree, you're troubleshooting physical WAN interfaces, physical LAN interfaces, and all of this is command line stuff. You got to be able to type it out. You got to know the commands cold. You got to be able to type them in fast on this exam. So there's a few ways to do this. One way is if you are already part of what Cisco calls their Cisco Academy, which means you have taken a formal class with Cisco or a class with a formal Cisco provider. You are then in what they call Cisco Academy, and Cisco has a Packet Tracer is an application that does a very nice job of emulating their products. So you can effectively build out a virtual lab and have the system set up and running, and it looks and feels as if it's a physical device. It's just not in the room with the power running. But you have to have taken a Cisco class, so that's a pretty big investment in money. There are free options such as GNS, which is a free application you can download from the internet, but it requires that you have the code that's running on those switches and routers. And one would argue that if you already have a switch and router, if you have the code, you probably have a switch and router. So that probably takes care of itself. And so another alternative, the one you just mentioned, is being able to have physical equipment. And there is a huge third-party it's kind of a set of resellers that all they do is resell these CCNA and CCIE packs of switches and routers. So for $300, $400, $500, boom, they'll give you all of the physical equipment that you could possibly need with the cables and the power settings and everything you need, and sometimes even a little mini rack to give you everything you need to plug in and run labs for the Cisco certification exam, which is actually not a bad idea. As long as you have a set of labs that you can follow, and there are a lot of great labs on the internet that you can use with these things, I think that's a pretty good alternative. In fact, it's probably the best if you haven't had Cisco Academy or you're not licensed to use the actual code from a switch or router. That's probably your best bet. It's a little bit of an investment on money, but maybe if a bunch of people get together and pool your money, it may not be quite as expensive, and you've got actual equipment to work with, which is never a bad idea either, I think, Ivan.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your answer. I'm definitely going to go ahead and buy it because I got to practice,
You have to. If you're taking the Cisco exams, don't go into that exam without a lot of, they call stick time, where you're sitting there going through the command lines, understanding how to troubleshoot at the command line, understanding how to set up these IP addresses and physical interfaces. You have to know it for both the CCENT and the CCNA. You do not want to walk in your exam without having some time at the command line, I assure you.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, I'm a big fan of yours, and I appreciate all your videos.
Thanks, Ivan, and good luck with those Cisco certifications. Let us know how it goes.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. There's so much on the Cisco you have to know at the command line. It's almost insurmountable. It's so much there. You really have to know it cold to be able to do that. Whenever I do that, whenever I start working with those things, it becomes really, really, really important to have that piece of it, especially on the Cisco. You don't have to know that much for the Network Plus or for the Security Plus, but boy, you sure need to know it for the others. Thanks for holding 831 area code. What's your name? Are you there?
Ruben.
Hi, what's your name?
Ruben.
Hey, Ruben. Thanks for calling.
So I've been studying for the Network Plus, and it seems that I come across different packets, and it seems like there's a big mix from the previous 300 series. I'm just curious how much of it carried over.
There is on the Network Plus from the current version of the N10006. I still see a lot of N10005 and even N10004 materials out there, especially if you go to some of the websites that have sample exams. A lot of it is sort of kind of these older exam numbers with the content. But one of the things I think that's different on the Network Plus than the A Plus is that the Network Plus content doesn't seem to churn as much as the A Plus. You know, if you look at the A Plus now, the 800 series, it still has Windows XP on it. It has CRTs on it. I think it still has CRTs on it. And floppy disks are on it. Well, 4 years ago, we were still using some of those things in our data centers. But things happen very quickly with computers, so that now those are very old technologies that you rarely see. But with networking, you don't seem to have the change in technology happen quite as fast. So if you looked, in fact, at the differences between I think I've done both the 004, 005, and 006 courses. And if you were to look at the indexes of each one of those, which effectively will sync back to the exam objectives, there's a lot of overlap. You know, you're not going to see a lot of the older Ethernet coax stuff in 006, but things like gigabit Ethernet have been around seemingly forever. Those don't change over time. The fiber technologies and the connectors are about the same as they were 2 versions ago. So I think some of the older materials can still be used to some degree to study, but just make sure you go to the exam objectives, and any place that there's something missing, make sure you supplement that online, supplement it with Wikipedia, supplement it maybe with another book. And of course, let me tell you, and I mentioned this in a lot of my study groups, a lot of your local libraries have access to technical libraries as well. They're outside of your library and all available digitally that you can download to a Kindle or to some other DRM type reader on your desktop. Make sure you check in, because they may have an N10006 book or the latest books for Cisco or the latest books for A+. There may be ways you can get your hands on those without having to go through the older materials.
Okay, thank you very much, Don.
Thanks, Ruben. There's and of course I always say don't study from the old things if you have any opportunity to study from the latest. You want to walk in with the best possible opportunity to pass that exam. Let's go to 415 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Lawrence.
Hey, Lawrence. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I really like your show. I just wanted to mention in terms of getting a Cisco router to test with. Have you heard of the GNS3?
I have. I mentioned GNS on when we were going through those iterations of different things. One of the things you have to have with GNS, even though the application is free to download and use, you still have to have the code for the switch or the router to run. So if you already have that, you already have a switch or router, you're already licensed to use that Cisco code, then absolutely you can use that. It's a very good emulator. It's actually improved quite a bit over the last year to 18 months, and they include a lot of new switch and router capabilities. I find it's very useful. The challenge just is licensing, and I want people to be aware that when you're trying to be straightforward with licensing and stay legal, if you will, that you have to keep that in mind, because you just can't get the Cisco code for their switches and routers off the street.
Right. I totally understand. I just thought it would be good to mention.
It's a great app. Do you use GNS3 for the things that you're doing? Do you use?
Yeah, we were actually using it with Palo, PAN.
I'm very familiar with Palo Alto Networks firewalls. How were you using it? Were you integrating in the Palo Alto Networks virtual firewall? Were you using physical firewalls and routing things outside of GNS?
Yeah, but we were using it to test out some different firewall rules or whatever. So, yeah, I just thought I would mention it. I thought, it'd be nice for your viewers.
I love kind of the integration that these third-party tools have to GNS, how you can pop open Wireshark and it just integrates into the virtual world and you grab data off of anything. It's a really, really powerful piece of software. You just have to be aware of the licensing pieces associated with it. But boy, you can do some really neat things inside of it that you can't do really with anything else, even in the physical world.
Yeah, I thought it was a cool, with all the kind of virtualization stuff going on, I thought it was a really cool option for networking equipment.
And when you figure you can sort of spin up any type of network infrastructure you'd like and put it together and try to send different routing protocols through it and try, especially when you're testing a third-party piece of equipment like a Palo Alto Networks firewall that interprets data very differently than things have in the past, you want to try throwing a lot of different things at it and see how it reacts. That's a great way to do it, I think.
Yep, I totally agree.
That's fantastic. Thanks. That's a good tip for everybody. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thank you.
That's one thing I think that we don't even use enough of is these third-party tools like GNS and like the others. They integrate into, you can send stuff outside of it, into the physical world. It integrates with VirtualBox. It integrates with all of these different virtual systems. And heck, if you even spin up a Palo Alto Networks firewall on a VM and pull it into GNS3, yeah, you're rocking and rolling. That's good stuff right there. The 316 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
I am, Professor. Yes, my name is Phil.
Hey, Phil. Thanks for calling.
So I just had a couple of questions for you really quick. Unfortunately, not Network Plus based.
That's okay. It's open phone
One,
lines.
I'm currently taking I just finished your 901 material, and I scheduled my exam.
Great.
And I was wondering if you had any form of ETA, because I haven't been able to find it on the rest of the material for 902.
Yeah, there is no ETA. The ETA is I'm going as fast as I can.
Okay.
I'm spinning through them as quickly as humanly possible because I want to get them done as badly as you. I was looking through the ones that we had currently. The 902 is coming along. I finished through the second domain of 902. So I have started the third domain, which is security. I have about 4 or 5 videos there to edit today. So those will be shot. And then I looked and it looks like I've got 5, 7, and 7 videos to shoot. So we're looking at 3 or 4 more sessions of video shoots to do. So we're really talking about this month in February. There should be no reason I shouldn't be able to have all these videos shot this month if I look at the calendar and have them in there. And then, of course, it takes me time to edit. But generally, editing goes relatively quick for these videos. You can see every week I'm putting up about 7 to 10 to 15 videos depending on what's going on. And the last videos on the 902 are relatively straightforward. It's security, there's troubleshooting, there is a lot of the command line stuff was earlier on, so I don't have to do a lot of command line. There's the things about professionalism and communication. So a lot of those go pretty quick. So you would think in a few weeks I should be able to at least have most of these things posted for the 902. So it won't be long.
Well, thank you for working so hard on that. I appreciate it. I know that you do your best. I wasn't trying to rush you or anything.
Well, I want to get it done as badly as you do. So I have other things I'd like to get to in the meantime. And of course, all of these things have to be available and on the web for this whole weird experiment that I'm living in to work properly. I can't get revenue for the business if I don't have videos online. And if I don't have videos online, there's no revenue coming in. So it sort of builds on each other.
Right, I understand.
Yep.
So I have one more question for you, and then I just wanted to say a couple of things to the viewers, if you don't mind. So I'm also studying your Security Plus at the same time.
Wow.
And I had a couple of questions on that as well.
Okay.
So when we're covering the course material, I'm wondering when I take the exam, exactly how much of it is going to be simulated? Because I would assume for the Security Plus, you're going to run into a lot more simulations than the other exams.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I have not taken the Security Plus exam in the last 12 months, though, to give you an exact answer along those lines. And even if I did, I guess we really can't talk specifics about the exam if I even took it. But the Security Plus exam doesn't have any command lines on it. So it's not like you have to know trace route or any of these security commands. You don't have to know how to use any specific tools for the Security Plus. You don't have to know how to do a database injection. You have to know what it is, but don't necessarily have to do it yourself. Now, in my videos, I demonstrate.
So it's more theory.
It is more theory. It's
essentially.
extensive theory. The course notes for Security Plus are like 30 pages long because it's almost all
I purchased
theory
those,
related.
by the way. They're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Great. So as you've seen, they're really
That was
big.
actually something I was going to say to your viewers. If you guys have not picked up his notes, please do that.
Oh, thank you.
They are so amazing.
Thank you so much. It's something I spend a lot of time on. So it's good that people
They're so well formatted. They're great. And so another thing I was going to say is the Reddit community loves you. I do follow you on Reddit.
Oh, great.
And there is an entire sub on Reddit to help people with questions related to Professor Messer's courses. You guys should check that out. Buy his notes. And for the love of God, people, do not go to a technical school for your education. Go to an actual university because it's a waste of money and they don't teach you anything. I can promise you that. I have a useless degree. I've been in IT for 6 years and it has done me nothing. So
it's
thank
one
you
of
very
those
much
things.
for having me, Professor.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for calling. I appreciate it. And thanks for your support of the site as well.
Take care.
Thanks, Phil. It's always a concern whenever you're getting into anything. One of the things I generally tell people to do is definitely avoid your profit, your pay for the for-profit technical schools are very questionable. Quite honestly, they're not doing well financially out there in the world. If you are going to if you don't want to go to university, you want to go to a technical school, go to a state or government sponsored school at the very least that has some relationship with the university in town. There's some great community colleges and technical schools in my community and I have universities in my community as well. And they have a connection back and forth. Everybody knows each other. I think that's your best bet. I can't necessarily recommend any of the for-profit ones, unfortunately. Let's go to the 901 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yes, sir.
How are you? What's your name?
My name is Dylan.
Hey, thanks, Dylan, for calling. What can we do for you?
Okay, so I'm currently attending a technical school. I plan on accomplishing the A+, Network Plus, and Security.
Nice.
Is that a good career path to take?
It is I kind of keep this as my stock answer is it's a good career path. It's a good path for you to take if that's what you want to do in your career. If you're using that to do something, it's a perfect path. And this kind of gets into more of a philosophical conversation because some people will say that certifications are worthless. Other people will say that certifications are valuable. And I say that certifications are as valuable as what you do with them. So I personally like certifications like the A+ and the Network Plus and the Security Plus because you actually do learn some very valuable skills with those certifications. You're learning how
something new every day.
Yeah, there's something new in these. Whenever I took my A+ for the first time, I thought I knew. I worked on computers for 20 years, and I went and sat for my A+ and started studying and realized I don't know what's going on inside of this box. And now I'm starting to learn how all these different components work together. It was an epiphany. It was a very big deal for me to realize, wow, there's good stuff in here to learn. Even if I don't use this in my career, I still feel like I learned something personally that I can use for what I do day to day. And same thing for Network Plus, same thing for Security Plus. The topics, in fact, on Security Plus, and you're talking for someone who comes from, my last position was with a security startup that was extremely successful and went public, that all of those things in Security Plus are spot on. Those are things you need to know whenever you're working in IT and working in network security and trying to keep things safe on the network. All of those topics they're just spot on. I can't really speak well enough of those materials. If you are planning to go into IT, you're not really planning to be a programmer. You're planning to go into information technology to be able to protect servers, to be able to configure these servers, to be able to protect the network, to understand what's happening on a firewall, to configure an intrusion prevention system, to be able to network devices together, to make sure the switches are communicating properly, to troubleshoot all of those, to optimize all of those. You're going to need to know the things that are on the A+, the Network Plus, and the Security Plus. It just makes perfect sense. They're a great jumping off point, I think.
Okay. Is there a minimum annual salary for if you have all three of those, or is that this is going to vary?
It does. It varies geographically because some parts of the country, in the United States anyway, and parts of Canada, wherever you are, there's a different level of demand for those particular skills. In very large cities, there's more of a demand. You tend to get more as an average amount of salary. In other places, there's less of a demand, but of course, you're not living in a big city either where things tend to be a little more expensive. And of course, it depends on where you live in the world. The salaries that are in the New York City area will be a bit higher because the cost of living is higher there than if you are in Atlanta, where the cost of living is dramatically different, but still a big city. So it really just depends on where you're going. I always recommend for people to go out to the big job postings for DICE, for Career Builder, for those, because a number of those, especially governmental jobs, is a good place to go, because in the governmental job postings, they put salary numbers that a lot of the private companies won't do. And even though you just take into account that a government position is generally going to pay a little bit less than a non-government position, but the benefits, of course, in a government position tend to be a little bit better than what you might find elsewhere. I guess it's a trade-off. But you can at least get an idea of, in this particular area for this particular government agency, here's how much they're asking for this network administrator position or security administrator position, and you can kind of get some barometer from that, I think.
Okay. Well, all right. I think that'll wrap it up. Appreciate everything you do, man.
Thank you,
really
Dylan.
Helpful.
Thanks for calling.
No problem.
There's I think that's a good place to go. It's hard to get numbers, isn't it, for these job postings? That people just don't want to share it because there's you get into this situation where the person has the job doesn't want to pay a certain amount. They want to pay as little as possible for the most amount of skills. And it becomes more of a challenge. You folks are holding on for so long. I appreciate it. For the 254, are you there, caller?
Yes. My name is Jamie.
Hey, Jamie, thanks.
I have a question about your videos.
Hit me.
You can buy your videos for Network Plus. I'm actually Canadian. I'm living in Kenya.
Wow.
Internet here is actually spotty, if I could put it like that.
Right.
But I'm just wondering, I have a question. If you were to buy it, are you able to download the videos as well?
You are. The way I've got it set up is that, you've got, of course, all the videos that I have online are available to watch for free. So you can watch them live and streaming online. It's when you get into situations like yours where you're away from internet connections, or the internet connection you have is spotty, low bandwidth, whatever it happens to be, are the offline versions. It is exactly the same content. It is provided on a flash drive that I will ship, but I also, at the same time, as soon as you purchase them, you can download all of them online as well. So you've got the choice. In fact, you've got them available to download forever in perpetuity whenever you purchase the course. And of course, I also ship you the flash drive too. So if you still can't download them, at least you're getting a physical package as well.
Yeah. No, my question is, how big of a download would that be?
Well,
if I was to download it?
That is a good question. Let's go out and have a look on my server at how big this is. So I've got my flash drives and how big those are. And the flash drive effectively has, so for all the video on we're talking the N10006 exam, it's about 4.1 gigabytes. Which is pretty good for the amount of videos and content that's there. If you were to download the MP3 files, they are substantially smaller, of course, at about 642 megabytes. And I guess those are the two biggest pieces. So you can think about just over 4 gig for the video files. Okay. And of course, I've got them blocked off, so you download them a section at a time. You're not downloading the entire section at one time, because I'm assuming most people may be in these situations where they might lose connectivity, so you want to grab as much as you can in a very short little chunk.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That would work. It's actually doable. So
yeah.
I can probably do that.
Oh, great.
So, okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for calling. Good luck.
All right. Thank you.
There's the videos themselves. I try to just stick everything out on the web. In fact, the 900 series videos right now are only available digitally. I don't have those in a physical form, at least not yet. The plan is to make them available. And I think I'm going to make them so that you have a choice. So you can have a physical product or maybe not pay as much and have a non-physical product. I think that might be useful. Let's go to 646 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hey, thank you, Professor, for taking my call.
Sure. What's your name?
My name is Tom.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for calling.
Hi. I'm quite new to this IT in the sense like I'm working as a QA analyst for the last 3 years. So I would, like to change my profession into Security Plus certification and go on. So what is your advice on this, to change from QA to Security Plus? Should I go to A plus and go to security, or can I go directly into the Security Plus certification?
There seems to be a lot of people that will go from a non-IT related field and they'll get into IT, especially on the Security Plus course, and take that certification. A lot of this I see happening with the United States government, because Security Plus is one of the entry-level certifications you have an IT position with the federal government in the United States. So you can't start with A plus, you can't start with Network Plus, you have to start with Security Plus or you can't have that job. So I see a lot of people starting with Security Plus to do that. So it's certainly possible to start with Security Plus. People do this all the time, and they don't go to A plus, they don't go to Network Plus. On the Security Plus exam, there's very little A plus information on the Security Plus exam. There's a little bit of overlap of Network Plus, but not a lot. The Security Plus exam is very focused on security. It's very focused on security theory as well. So if you're someone who is non-technical, or you're not familiar with operating systems or troubleshooting operating systems or troubleshooting networks, that's okay. None of that's on the Security Plus exam. The Security Plus exam is almost exclusively process, procedure, and at least an overview of technologies, understanding what man in the middle is, understanding what a SQL injection is, understanding when you should use an intrusion prevention device. But you don't have to be able to get to a command line. You don't have to do any subnetting. You don't have to do any of that on the Security Plus exam. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to be able to start with Security Plus, as long as you approach it from the perspective of needing to study that much more, especially if you're just getting into the technology side of things.
Thank you, Professor. And one more question,
Sure.
I'm planning to buy your lab also. So what kind of information is available on the lab?
Let's have a look at the Security Plus lab. In fact, I'll just bring it up since I'm already logged in. We were showing the Network Plus lab today. Since you're talking about Security Plus, I'm going to bring up that GTS Learning Live lab for Security Plus, and I'll tell you what the topics. We will look at them ourselves. They're online learning for the SY0401. Here it is. I'm going to go to, did I choose the live labs? I think I chose their book side. Let's go over to the live labs for the 401. Here it is. Live labs. Here they are. Let's launch them and make them big. And the Security Plus. Threats, Trojan and malware protection. You've got application data establishing host security, protocol analyzers, network vulnerabilities, vulnerability scanning, PKI concepts, which are hard enough, certificate management, application security, radius, transitive trust and authentication. We're talking about that in the chat room last night. Compliance, user rights and permissions, routers, routing protocols, firewalls, spam filters, IPsec. They got DNS poisoning in here, SNMP, iSCSI. Wow, this is huge. Patching, data encryption, backup execution, transport encryption, load balancers, cloud computing, RAID, clustering. It goes on and on and on. They have the full list of what's included in this course on the GTS Learning website. You can find that link to the GTS Learning site from the Security Plus index that's on my website. But you can see there's a lot of Security Plus content in there.
Thank you, Professor, and I really appreciate for what you're doing for the community.
Thanks, Tom. Good luck with that certification. Let us know how it goes.
Thank you.
That's a lot of content. That's Security Plus. I almost forget. I finished the Security Plus course about a year ago. And boy, just going through, churning through the content is a lot to be able to get on there. And I forget because there are so many videos for Security Plus that there's actually 2 YouTube playlists. I filled up the first playlist. I think you can only have 200 videos in a playlist. And I have 250 something. So I had to have a second playlist to have it there. That's a little bit of a challenge to be able to get that. I think I'll do on the next one. I'll kind of piece some of them together. I think there's some of the videos that probably could have been combined. So I have to work on that. It's a lot of individual videos. It's a trade-off, right? A lot of individual videos versus very long videos. And I don't want to ever have a very long video. I want to focus on getting just the content you need, and then we're good. We don't have to do that anymore. Let's go to the 205 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yes. Good morning. How are you, Professor?
Good morning. And thank you so much for calling. What can we do for you?
My name is Mel Revere. I spoke with you through emails from time to time.
Sent a few back and forth.
Yeah, and I live in Birmingham, Alabama. Have taken 901, successfully passed.
Nice.
And the A+. And I was wondering, I got your MP3 on security, and I burned it to a CD, and I listened to it every single night as I go to sleep.
Wow.
And it's amazing because you can wake up in the morning and you know words and things that, how did I know that? But it's embedded in your brain as you sleep. So I was wondering, the security in the network, is there a preference? Is there a job demand for one over the other? Which I'm in question about which route I should take, network or security.
I think there is. Now, the security market itself is very broad. There are so many different things to do in security. And I generally see security broken up into the computer science side of things. And when I say computer science, I'm referring to people who are doing application development and the things associated with application development. So if you're concerned about the security of applications, you're concerned about developing applications which do not have security problems in them. That's really more on the computer science side of things. There's another part of security that's, I think, much broader, that's on the information technology side of things. If you're somebody who is in a corporation who has to manage and maintain a network, keep it safe, you've got firewalls, you've got IPS, you've got proxies, you have cloud-based virus detection, you're doing mobile device security, anything dealing with that part of the world that's not programming is more on the information technology side. With all of these, especially with IT, there is a huge emphasis for IT security to have a very strong foundational knowledge in networking. It is almost always with the IT security team, they started on the network side. And that's because the IT security team has to be able to integrate a firewall into the network, or the firewall needs to be able to route. So you're going to need to understand routing protocols. You need to know where to put the firewall. Your firewalls these days might switch. You need to understand how to integrate VLANs with it. Firewalls these days might have a virtual wire, so you need to understand how to integrate that into your gigabit network and get the switches working properly. There may be link aggregation involved. All of them might integrate with a proxy that's going to communicate through a browser. So you can kind of see there's this I could go on and on. There is this huge hook into the network side of things, especially in network security, but in all of IT in general. If you're managing a file server, there's a big network component to that. If you're managing a Windows domain and you're communicating back and forth with domain communication and having the synchronization of these domains and the replication, there's a big networking component to that as well. When you have a virtual machine with redundant network interface cards, those have to be able to integrate to the switches. So everything to me, and this is speaking as someone who's been on the side where I've managed servers, I've managed Windows, I've managed the network, I've managed security. If the more you know about the network, the more you'll be able to do any of those jobs better. And in the case of security, you almost always have to start on the network side to be even considered as someone who might be ready for an IT security position. So that's where I always tell people, if you want to know how to do anything in IT, know how to do the network first, and everything builds off of that. So that's a very broad and very,
I'll tell you what,
it's a big statement, but there you go.
Man, you need to put that in a little packet. That's worth some money right there. That's some good advice. I really do appreciate that. One more question. Wow, it's after your time. I know you got to go eat and all, but do you have the N10 6 on MP3 now?
I do. My N10 006 course is available for the course notes. The MP3s can be bought separately, and the videos can be bought with the MP3s and course notes as well. You can get them all bundled, or you can buy them separately.
Great. Okay. I will get the network MP3s, and I will start listening to them constantly then.
Very good.
Okay.
I think that's a good place to go.
Man, we love you out here, and man, I appreciate all you've done. And I happened on you by accident December 2 years ago, and I've been doing this. I've got an entire network with 15 units in my home.
Nice.
I've
Nice.
just built them and played.
And I think that's the way to do it. And you're fortunate as well, because in Birmingham, it's an area I used to go to quite a bit for business. There's a huge set of opportunities there for people who need that need good technical folks. And it's a great place to live too. I love that area.
Yeah. All right. Well, dude, you be careful and be safe. Take care of your family. And again, we appreciate all you do, and have a great rest of the week.
Same to you, Mel. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
There is, as I mentioned, a huge emphasis on the networking side. If you're going to be doing anything in IT, it's just everything points back to networking. I think it's one of those, being able to work through it. Well, this, as Mel mentioned, this does bring us to the end. I've gone now for 2 hours and 15 minutes, more than we usually will do to have this particular course, particular study group going. But that's okay. I like it when the calls are coming in. We can kind of keep things going. But I do have editing to do and other things as well. As I mentioned, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I would not be able to do this without you joining in and answering the questions and calling in and seeing what we're doing. Somebody did mention and sent me an email earlier in the week, by the way. They wanted to have this also available as a podcast. I thought that was a fabulous idea. So that's another thing to go on my list of things I want to do, is to take these study groups and have an MP3 available that you can just have automatically downloaded to your device. That would be nice to have there. I'm considering making it a video version as well, although there's bandwidth concerns with that, but we can always work through some of those things and see if that might work a little better too. But I thought that was a fabulous idea. Well, this brings us to the end of another study group. Thanks everyone for joining us. I could not do this without you joining us. We'll do another one of these next month. If you're someone who likes attending the study groups, there's one of these next week, same time, same place, for Security Plus, and we'll be through the month of February. Can you believe it? Thanks for joining us for this one. We'll see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Thanks, everyone.